Welcome to NFL Daily, where we love a good revenge game. I'm Gregg Rosenthal here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with Jourdan, Rodrigue, and Patrick Claybon. Yes, atop of the rundown this week is a Super Bowl rematch, but I found other spots in this schedule where there's some good revenge games just sprinkled throughout.
Oh, a thematic revenge week 2 as some teams looking to bounce back. It's good.
Just a dabble of revenge.
Yeah. And I'm glad to discuss revenge with two people that I have no vengeance with.
No, we almost get along too well. I think a little creative tension would be good for the show, Jourdan. So if you just want to pick some fights.
I get it. That's what you've been trying to do. I understand now.
So we're breaking up the preview this week, and we're talking all the AFC teams, all the AFC games and AFC teams that have the home games first, and it did feel weird to start anywhere else but the Super Bowl rematch.
Yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Eagles got their revenge, and I guess now the Chiefs are re-revenging that situation. It is an over-under of 47.5. Kansas City giving up a half a point at home. Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, Tom Rinaldi, and Aaron Andrews on the call. We saw the Philadelphia Eagles passing game light up the night in the Super Bowl, Greg. What does Jalen Hurts have for Spags' defense this time around?
It is difficult when there's only been one game played between that to not have that in your mind and think something similar could happen again. And that's why I've seen the big Chiefs fans out there, like our friend Nick Wright, making it a big cause that, wow, the Chiefs are underdogs at home. That's disrespectful. I think the line's flipped the other way. Either way, it's basically a toss-up. But these teams are so different. I already think a lot differently about these two teams and how they're constructed right now. And the biggest takeaway for me is on both sides, I'm not as confident in their defenses, and for the Eagles and the Chiefs.
I think first and foremost, we do want to see what this looks like when Jalen Carter's actually playing in the game. So first and foremost, and that front, because you have Jordan Davis playing 87% of snaps, which he's never done in his career before. You have Moro Ojomo playing a lot more. This is a defensive front that's supposed to be predicated on having Jalen Carter present. Obviously, we all were aware of Spitgate and his absence from their season opener. It completely changed what they want to do with their defense. But your point on questions is good, Greg, because after watching Adoree Jackson last week and Vic Fangio's hesitancy, but maybe has to eventually put Cooper DeJean outside because it's been sort of a catastrophe out there, I do have questions about the secondary still.
And ultimately, right, I think it's fair to have Adoree graded on a little bit of a curve to go from playing CeeDee Lamb to playing what's left of the Chiefs wide receiver core. I know Hollywood Brown's going to get majority of opportunities. Andy Reid said this week that surgery is not on the table right now for Xavier Worthy, which was scary to hear that right now. Caveat, because
that's as good as you could hope for. He's not going on injured reserve
and they're
right
calling
now.
Him day to day, quote unquote, right now.
Right
now.
I just don't like hearing that right now part. Travis Kelce also took the blame for Xavier Worthy's injury. Not that that's going to make anything better or worse, but I just looking back at the Super Bowl, there was so much attention, and rightfully so, by Spags in stopping Saquon Barkley that it's tough to imagine the game playing out that differently. I know there's some parts of the teams that have changed, and mostly on the Philadelphia Eagles point of view, but just from that standpoint of approaching this Eagles offense, I think the priority is still Saquon, which leaves Devontae Smith, who is close to 100 yards a game in his career against the Kansas City Chiefs, being a guy I think is going to have a good opportunity.
And guess who maybe is in a great mood after a game plan like that? But A.J. Brown, who, by the way, has never started and finished a game with less than 4 targets in his entire career. So something's going to change in that regard after last week.
It's a good call, and I just don't love the fact that they have Trent McDuffie on the outside and Shamari Connor as their slot corner, because I think it makes 2 of their positions worse, and I think you can pick on Connor a little bit, but I think one of the reasons they signed Zadarius Smith, and we haven't talked about that on the show, the Eagles sign him, and that could turn out to be a great signing. If they get what he was a year ago, that's one of the best third edge guys in the league. I'm assuming he will be behind Jalix Hunt and who am I forgetting? Nolan Smith, of course, who didn't have a QB hit last week.
Yeah.
Their pass rush was not great. Josh Uche was by far their best pass rusher, and he was giving me 2012 all-22 on the Patriots Josh Uche vibes. So if suddenly you have Uche and Zadarius Smith coming off the bench, that's a really interesting matchup against your boy Josh Simmons at left tackle and then Juwan Taylor at right tackle. And I feel better about that pass rush. But it was interesting to me that it was a very quiet game from that perspective. I know Jalen Carter wasn't there, but, you know.
Yeah, and you know what? But even I know there's like a right down the middle split between the people that think that was a really, really big deal and the people that don't think that should have been that big of a deal. But I mean, if you think about the amount of attention he commands and mathematically the amount of just pure space, let alone matchups or blocking help or chipping or anything, if you just account mathematically for the amount of space that's being dedicated to stopping that guy and freeing the rest of the people around him, including the people on the edges. I mean, that is, and to your point, it is a big deal for the two tackles because they struggled. I thought that Josh Simmons, I thought his feet looked really good, and I think he's going to get better as time passes, and I think he's already pretty good. But the penalties, the jumpiness, the settling into their frames and into the cadence and timing of the offense, not getting like freaked out by the speed coming off the edges, those are things that still have to be cleaned up. And Juwan Taylor's had struggles with penalties every year.
Right, and their biggest problem really in that game was Sua Matea, who's the left guard, and you can get, you know, Carter over him at some points. And Jordan Davis, I thought, in retrospect, when I rewatched the game, had a good game. Actually, it was probably one of Jordan Davis's better.
He looked like he was in shape.
Yeah,
too.
better games of his career. And then watching, and I do want to get to the Chiefs' offense of it all, but watching Campbell and Zach Bond, and so this was, you know, the first game of the year. So I kind of have a tradition. You know, you enjoy it. You go watch. You have the time. There's not a ton of it. You go rewatch that back, like the all-22, and I just focused on them and. Man, they have to be the best duo in the league, and they can just muck up everything. There was that stretch in the game where they both had passes defense down the field. Bond had a great tackle in space, and then Campbell helped out on the forced fumble. He got the credit. Probably shouldn't have gone to him, but who cares? He made a big play there. And Bond's two open field tackles essentially saved the game. One, you know, running down Miles Sanders, but another one to set up the 4th and 3 that, you know, was the second to last play. I don't want to just talk about last week, but when I think about that versus the Chiefs, like, where are their playmakers? Like, Patrick Mahomes went full playmaker. I loved it. I've been asking for the old Patrick Mahomes. It was back. It was 3 or 4 big time throws. It was scrambling. It was him trying to make plays. But does he have enough of the guys around him that can also make plays?
The plus side on that for the Eagles, where the upside for Jahad Campbell was going to be the easy stuff that you ask rookies to do, like occasionally rush the passer. And here he's great on pass coverage against a locked-in Dak Prescott, who I think kind of changed the pressure numbers a bit because the pressure was there. They weren't able to finish the plays because Dak's pocket management was incredible. He kind of got sold by his entire receiving unit in that game. But I think things will look better for this Eagles defense, clearly. And we'll see. It's going to have to be a lot of 15. A lot of 15 making plays.
And I think when we talk about changing the math with the Eagles front, we also think about changing the math with the Chiefs receivers, with and without Xavier Worthy on the field, because obviously he does so much for them and he makes the defense accountable for so much space, not just in front of the zones, but behind them as well. And so we'll kind of have to see whether he's available. If he's not, it's a big Travis Kelce game. I know we say this year over year over year, and especially if Vic Fangio decides to pop Cooper DeJean out onto the outside or the perimeter a little bit more, then if I am Andy Reid and Matt Nagy, I'm sort of licking my chops thinking, okay, I'm going to now, really spam the tight end in the middle of the field. But then that's where you're so lucky, and probably luck is the wrong word if you're the freaking Eagles, because you got 2 cover linebackers in there who are going to just maul the tight end. I love this. I love all the counter possibilities in this game.
Mahomes was 12 for 19 last week for 84 yards against split safety coverage, and now he goes up against Fangio, who helped to change the league in terms of the coverages that has essentially strangled the Chiefs into being one of the worst deep ball teams in the league. So the matchup is fascinating, and like logic leans Eagles, and yet there is part of me that just I can't imagine the Kansas City Chiefs being 0-2. I do sometimes make picks based off of that. I can't quite imagine it, and there is something about whenever you think that the Chiefs are really in trouble, they just find a way, and that's why 15 is 15
at home too, and that that crowd at the Super Bowl, Greg, I mean, I remember we turned to each other at one point. We looked at each other and we were like, holy cow, there's a lot of Eagles fans here. Just like as loud as I've ever heard any place ever. And so the Chiefs fans, they're going to want to show up for this one, and they're going to want to try to affect the game.
They get the revenge because the doubt and the disrespect, as Mitch Holtis would say, is on the way up. We'll see. 0-2 because they're trailing in the division to literally everybody, including a team that's tied for first place in the division. Our next game, the Denver Broncos going on the road where they are giving up 2.5 points at the 1-0 Indianapolis Colts. The over-under is 42.5. Kevin Harlan, Trent Green, and Melanie Collins on the call. Dimes came out, and he was spectacular, Jourdan. The Dolphins had no answer. What did the Denver Broncos do to stop Daniel Jones?
I mean, they're a better defense, first and foremost, right? So the things that were available, perhaps, for Daniel Jones to attack, and for Shane Steichen, the space that Shane Steichen was able to capitalize on, especially getting Tyler Warren into space, finding some of these voids, you're going to have less of an easy time doing that with the caliber of Vance Joseph's defense. You're also getting a better pass rush here. The Broncos were at a 51% pressure rate against kind of a shaky Titans offensive line last week, and Daniel Jones only faced a 24% pressure rate in the opener, which had a huge effect. It was the third lowest of his career, and obviously he made the most of that time.
All right, so Daniel Jones made some plays last week that looks familiar. He took a couple big hits, which makes you worried if you're a Colts fan and you want this success you saw in week 1 to continue. It just seems like a matter of time until we see Anthony Richardson if Daniel Jones keeps being so unaware in the pocket, which we've seen throughout his career. But what we haven't seen, first of all, he was very good against pressure, against blitzes. His numbers against the blitz last week were fantastic. And that, to me, is coaching. He had good answers from Shane Steichen that they were ready for. And you also saw some of the big-time throws back in Daniel Jones's game that we saw as a rookie. And I know we didn't have a throw of the year candidate on the Sunday show, but I've got one that if you're watching us on YouTube, you can catch Daniel Jones throwing deep down the field. And I don't think, when I went back and watched games this week, I saw a better throw than this whole shot to the sideline and Alec Pierce catching it. And I do love the synchronicity of the fact that week 1 last year, Anthony Richardson, I believe, had the best throw of the entire season. And it was to Alec Pierce. And here's Daniel Jones just making it.
And I did not think that Alec Pierce was going to have an opportunity to do what Alec Pierce does with Daniel Jones at quarterback, but Daniel Jones has proved me wrong. He's the best quarterback in the NFL.
I love that the roof was open and he didn't lose him in the shadow. Like, I mean, I think it'd be pretty easy to lose him in the shadow there of the crossbar coming over the top. It was a great play. It was a great throw. I'm hesitant on giving Daniel Jones the throw of the year.
I think,
so far.
I think there's a lot of football left to play. I
know that, but the point is we're supposed to have the candidates and the leaders in the clubhouse, and we just keep adding to the list. And I'm waiting. You guys are on the recap show, so I'm open to any nominees that you see that have been better. Matthew Stafford had a no luck one that was
and also the sideline shot to he had 2.
He had a couple
sideline shot to Devontae, which I did present, but it seems to have just gone one.
Okay, so those are 2 early.
You know what I
early
think
candidates.
You know what I think is kind of cool about this, and you pointed this out earlier in the year. The Anarumo-sance.
Yes.
Lou Anarumo's defense looked really, really good. They were disrupting Tua Tagovailoa's timing. They were disrupting some of the timing on the routes that were unfolding too, getting some of those speed guys off of their spots. Cam Bynum and Xavier Howard, turns out they're a pretty great, really entertaining safety duo that are making plays on the ball. They're extremely active. Interception by Cam Bynum, and then a combined strip sack by Xavier Howard and Kenny Moore. I mean, this defense is playing the ball, and they're playing the quarterback, and I think that's exciting.
That was the one time Cam Bynum was targeted in week 1, was the pass from Tua that he picked off. Pretty effective sign.
Don't throw at me.
Stay and he did this totally insane backwards worm afterwards. I was like, oh, it's Cam Bynum with another reference to some like early 2000s show that I've never heard of. And then they asked him about it, and he was like, no, I don't know what I was doing. I just sort of just made that up as I went along and did a backwards worm, and it was awesome. Unfortunately, the Colts won't have Charvarius Ward. It sounds like Wednesday he's out of practice. He's in the concussion protocol. It is very rare for someone in the concussion protocol on Wednesday not practicing to play, and they already were thin at cornerback. That's why they signed Xavier Howard in the first place. Jalen Jones is out, and they are fresh though. I was looking at the snap, like they only played like 38, 44 snaps on defense, even the guys that were on the field for every snap. So they should be fresh. And I think it's an interesting matchup because Bo Nix is coming off one of the worst games of his career.
Yeah, he had a bad game. And again, the way that Lou Anarumo played Tua, specifically disrupting the timing plays, that is a Bo Nix staple as well, is those timing plays and those route combinations in accordance to specific cadences and all of those motions and all those things. And Anarumo's guys were really, really aggressive on that. They play intelligent defense, and that is exactly where Bo Nix has really got to bounce back this week. And it's a concern because of, the week that he had in week 1.
Yeah, there were some opportunities there. There were some throws that Bo Nix left on the board, including the wide open touchdown that would have sealed the game on 4th and 8, where Courtland Sutton was by himself, all alone. I do think the difference between in this week for the Colts defense is the Broncos aren't going to abandon the run the way that the Dolphins did. Where it's just, even though
the Dolphins?
Yeah, Devon Achane, I think he was over 8 yards a carry still, but and it's not like the scoreboard was that lopsided early on. Where they could have gone to the run. The Broncos, I think, are going to run the ball enough to keep Bo Nix a lot cleaner than Tua.
Yeah.
This week.
I have a theory about Bo Nix after watching that game. It felt like, he had spent this whole offseason. We've heard Bo Nix is getting better. He's feeling himself, and he put entirely too much dip on the chip. Like, he was trying out all this stuff that it was kind of like, throws across his body while running to the left, all about improv, like, every other throw that he made was an incredibly difficult try into a small window, and that's partly why he had the couple interceptions. He had some really nice plays, too, but it was almost like he was trying to do so much, like showing it. It's like the guy who comes back from school and he went to another country and he's just like practicing out the new language and like the new clothes that he has. Like he was trying to show everyone how much he improved.
Is this a particular person, Greg?
Yes, it's Rob. Rob Dillingham. No, I'm just making that.
But I think
it was just like it was a lot of Bo.
If you have a game like that, that's the coach you want to be coached by, because Sean Payton will nip that in the bud like now. Like he'll be like, he will say some stern things, I'm sure.
The matchup also I want to see is Nick Bonito versus Bernard Ryman. I mean, Nick Bonito got that contract last week and then was just the best player on the field against Tennessee, and you just kind of forget what an incredible player he was. First among everyone in the league at pass rush win rate with over 20 pass rush snaps. So they just have so much talent. It's hard to lean Indianapolis, but it wouldn't shock me. Riley Moss also, I thought, after kind of a bad second year, had a really nice first game last week.
Clearly, after my fraudulent Survivor pick, I'm willing to lean.
Oh, that's right. You took Miami.
Yeah.
We will be doing Survivor picks on Wednesdays.
And I'll be watching you guys do Survivor picks.
You're wrong.
Eric with the drop.
Our next matchup, the 1-0 Buffalo Bills giving up 6.5 points to the division rival New York Jets. The over-under is 45.5 after Justin Fields and company ran up and down the field against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. Jim, Tony, and Tracy on the call. Greg, do the Bills have a trap game?
I mean,
I don't believe in that. I don't know.
It shouldn't be a trap game. If they're watching the Jets tape from a week ago, I still can't move past that new sound drop. So I guess let's use it here. So if I was talking to the week 1 version of myself that was so confident the Jets were going to pull off the upset against the Steelers, I would hear back, "You're wrong." Where does that?
It might be my new favorite.
I'm sad that exists. I'm glad this is a Jim and Tony game. I'm shocked that the Bills are favored by this much. To me, it's a toss-up. And I know it was against the Ravens, and I know Josh Allen only plays for one of these teams, so of course they should be favored. But there were a lot of concerning signs for the Bills last week.
On the one hand, Josh Allen, so happy for this team that they have Josh Allen. So happy for all of us on the planet that Josh Allen exists, right?
Eric
on
especially.
the other hand, Eric especially.
Yes, for sure.
On the other hand, I think I was right to worry about the Bills defense coming into the season, guys. I mean, I know I got some talk back on that one, but watching, the Ravens, and it's the Ravens, yes, watching them run all over, especially the linebackers and the safeties, and the safeties were taking bad angles to tackle, and the linebackers were out of position. They were getting moved off their spot. The front line was just getting moved or boxed into these bad like spatial areas where they couldn't shed their blocks. And like it just every single level of this defense gave me cause for concern. And that's not even talking about the outside spots, which at corner, which still aren't figured out.
The secondary looks like a mess. And I think the last team you want to play when you're the Bills, who even against the Ravens are just sitting back in that shell coverage and they're just running all over them. And there's no right way to do it, because even when they brought people up to try to stop Derrick Henry in the playoffs, it didn't necessarily work that well. It is what they do. But I do think the Jets are a particularly difficult matchup for that style of team based off the way they ran the ball.
Ed Oliver can't do everything. He tried. He had a great game, but he needs some help. And the Jets are tough because they are physical. We saw this last week. They're physical. They are running the ball really, really well. And they also had a number one receiver who went almost 100. He went 95 yards. Garrett Wilson had 95 yards, and it kind of went quietly underneath the run game by Breece Hall, and how much that line was moving people around. I mean, this could be dangerous.
The one thing like that leapt off the screen to me was because Mike Tomlin loved that defense. I know that the projections for the 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers defense were significantly better than the offense. I was one of those folks. And then Amon Minbu comes out, his first career NFL game, going up against TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and all those guys. 26 pass blocking snaps with a time to pressure of 3.8 seconds. Almost 4 seconds of pass protection from your rookie in his first game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we saw just, again, there's so much that's a Ravens asterisk with that first week that I understand the concern.
But they were a mess. They were a mess in practice, reportedly. They were a mess in the preseason in terms of whether it's Bishop or DeMar Hamlin on the back end, at least.
Yeah, and those are concerns that we had on the back end for a team that could have easily gone to and won the Super Bowl a year ago. There's only so many different ways you can get a team together in the NFL in 2025. But it is almost an all Josh show. And as you mentioned, Ed Oliver, I know he can't be everywhere, but so much is reliant on 91 to make a play, and that's what he was able to do. And the Bills just are going to need just enough and get the ball into 17's hands and have him make a play at the end
and get into Keon Coleman's hands too.
Yeah,
I'm excited. He had one of those training camps where if you're tracking like the daily coverage from your colleague Joe Basaglia, who I think does a great job. It was like a rough start to camp. They're hoping he bounces up. And then you heard a steady drumbeat as it was ending, that the light was kind of turning on. And one of the catches that he made, not the touchdown, which really was an incredible individual play. And when I rewatched that really was the intended target for Josh Allen. It was just, I think, Kincaid or Knox, whoever it was, that kind of saw it and put his hand. But he was trying to throw it to Coleman, but great concentration. But he had a play up the sideline earlier that, to me, showed everything you want out of Keon Coleman. They have, to me, more than enough weapons. They did last year to be the number one most efficient offense in the league. My problem is, like, with the Jets, like, okay, asking the Jets to keep up in a shootout is kind of a wild thing to expect. But based on how their defense looked a week ago, maybe that's stuff they can fix, because it felt like a lot of coverage busts. Guys were just running wide open. If that stuff is happening in like week 6, that's the type of defense you would say, ooh, that's not a well-coached defense right now. It was a lot of just big-time mistakes from the Jets defense.
I would rather have that type of problem that's schematically correctable than guys are not tackling at the right angle. Safeties are not in the place that they need to be to make the proper tackle on the running backs. Linebackers are out of position to make the tackles on the running backs. Running backs are just running through. That's where I'm concerned, because if you can run the ball like this early in the year, if you're the Jets and you're the Bills and you know you're going to put up a lot of points, you're still in trouble every single week that this is not fixed on the defensive side. Because yes, you can rely on your superhuman quarterback, and that will probably get you pretty far. But like I said, if you're getting pushed around like this, the way that the Jets did to the Steelers through a lot of that game, and also the way that the Bills themselves got pushed around for most of that game by the Ravens, I'm worried about this team.
I think there is a real difference in getting blown up and not being at the right position at the start of the play against the Baltimore Ravens, and Taylor Rapp trying to make a tackle on Derrick Henry in space, it's going to have a predictable
Yeah.
outcome. But when Ben Skoranek and Calvin Austin are just running down the field by themselves,
Right.
they're both
Yeah.
schematic issues that desperately need to be addressed.
Ben Skoranek, erasure right there.
Super Bowl champion Ben Skoranek. No shade at Ben.
I love early in the season, and these teams are just figuring themselves out. It's almost the first 3-4 weeks. We're just finding out who they are. But it's hard, Patrick, as a longtime member, I would imagine, of Justin Fields Nation, which I consider myself a member of, not to be excited about one of the best games of his career. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
That is not a stretch whatsoever.
Like in every single way that we talked about, that we thought they would maximize him, but it was really the day passing. I thought that was impressive in terms of the plan and the execution.
Yeah, I agree, and I do think it kind of went under narrated, I guess.
But they lost.
Yeah, because they lost, and then but also, I mean, he had time, he had space, but he also had this confidence, and he had this, like, the way that he ran the offense. You could tell it has been built for him in every phase, and I have to believe that gives somebody confidence. On the other side, and I say it again, like, what are you going to do against Josh Allen? Probably nothing, honestly, all season, and he's going to have to do everything. At least for now, and get the ball to his playmakers. But I kind of think this could be a shootout. Honestly.
I love that. I mean, I would love if that the Bills-Jets rivalry in the year 2025 is an offense-fueled game.
As the Patriots disappear from view.
I mean, the Patriots and the Dolphins barely exist this week, but that's the power of week 2. You can just completely flip it. We are going to take a quick break. We're just getting started with all these AFC teams. Back on NFL Daily, fun slate of games. I got to say, Cam Ward last week had one of the most exciting, nightmarish games possible. Like, his performance wasn't a nightmare, but like the Titans' overall team and the result was kind of nightmarish. And yet, going back to watch that, like, I was like, give me 16 more of these. Obviously, with more completions and more production.
And stay
but
safe,
I just want to watch this man play football.
Please keep him safe.
Must-see TV for Cam Ward on the road. He and his Tennessee Titans get to be back at home, facing off against the man who was deprived of a Throw of the Year candidate nomination. That is Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles.
Put it on. We got to just document it. Okay.
Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams, who are a 6-point favorite at the Titans. The over-under is 41.5. Ian Eagle, TJ's brother, and Evan Washburn on the call as Greg. These Rams, seemingly, 9 is healthy. He was standing very upright in his post-game interview after a win. How do you feel about them against the Tennessee Titans?
I feel great, except the offensive line already looks like it's going to be down 2 starters. Slipped a little under the radar. Steve Avila and Kevin Dotson are both listed as week to week, so that's their starting interior players. And going up against the Titans defense that I came up with after watching them against Denver. Like, what would you guys describe them as? If you could do it in one word, because I think I came up with the perfect one word to describe the Titans defense. I want to see if you can top me.
I would say violent.
Violent. Okay. Jourdan.
Angry.
I was going to do creditable.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
We went with more...
Like professional would be another. I just was watching them and I'm thinking, you know what? That's a creditable defense.
Credible?
Creditable. That's a word. Just like they're there, they're professional. Like they do credit to themselves. It's not going to be flashy, but it's just a lot of players without like a lot of team speed overall, but a lot of players who are just like rock solid. And yes, a little violent.
Well, they've got to carry a lot. That's why I say angry, because I would be.
Yeah,
if I know how to do my job like that. The rest.
Well, it's a very polite way to say mid for those of you who
that's different.
New to creditable.
Creditable is new to the planet.
No, it's not. Like, you have me question itself. Creditable.
Deserving public acknowledgement and praise, but not necessarily outstanding or successful.
I mean, read a book, Jourdan. Come on. Expand that vocab. Okay, like this. Okay, so when I think about creditable.
Speaking of angry.
I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is a little beyond that. Like, he is violent, and he was awesome in that game.
That's the play that I'm thinking of, Jeffrey Simmons' personal foul, that you could make the case cost the Titans a legitimate shot at winning the game because it extended a Broncos drive. That was the violence that I was thinking.
I think they're just tough. Like, if you go through the like Sebastian Joseph Day, like, he's a pro. T'Vondre Sweat, he's a lot to deal with. They have guys like Arden Key and Shai Tuttle who are like coming off the bench. And then I thought it was big for them. L'Jarius Sneed was on a pitch count, but while he was in there, he looked like L'Jarius Sneed. And you think about this matchup, he's probably the guy who would draw Devontae. That is a much tougher. Like, he's going to be the guy who's going to go against the physical cornerbacks. I don't know if they're going to use him more, but you add up the players in that secondary, and again, it's not flashy, but Roger McCreary is like a good player. Monty Hooker is a good player. They just gave a contract to, and it's just like a lot of guys who are solid, and maybe we see some year 2 growth out of this defense, and that would help Cam Ward out.
A couple years ago when the Rams hosted the Titans, this was a really bad game for Matthew Stafford. This was multiple hits, multiple turnovers. Jeffrey Simmons had his way with the interior of that offensive line as well. Even if you have Steve Avila and Kevin Dotson back on the left and right side, they're dealing with respective leg, foot, ankle, knee injuries. And so that's something that is definitely going to factor in. Matthew Stafford did, in fact, not only survive but thrive in this game. By the way, I will note this is my survivor pick.
Ooh.
This week, I could not bet against Matthew Stafford.
Don't use that word. Don't use that word.
Watching the game that he played this last week, I was really, really impressed with it. I did also win my survivor pick last week. I do take this game very seriously. Minnesota,
no,
I believed in the entire time. Definitely was the right pick. But in this game, I think it's super interesting because, the Rams actually, the defense, the pass rush, which is so outstanding and again put on quite a show, recovered that last forced fumble at the end of the game to ice out the Texans, pressured C.J. Stroud quite a bit, about a 50% rate, 48% rate this last game. They're also really susceptible to quarterbacks who can move. There were a couple times where C.J. Stroud baited the overrush, where they lost their rush integrity because they are young and they want to sack the quarterback. This happened to them all last year. It's a coaching point that they've reiterated over and over again, especially to those edge guys. And they did see it right away at the beginning of that game. So I think that Cam Ward can make some things happen against this front, even though I do think over time, this front will just wear on you, and that's going to ultimately decide the game, in my opinion. But I think he'll make some plays against them.
They were so much better against Houston when they didn't blitz.
Yeah.
I think they were only able to convert about 12% of their pressures when blitzing into sacks against the Houston Texans. And so they just ultimately decided we're going to utilize that talent and have great plays in the secondary. Cam Kinchins had that turnover, and I believe there was another interception that was from
Kobe Durant.
Yeah,
he snatched it right out of the receiver's hand.
A stolen play where it's like if you have those guys in position to make plays, just get the extra defender there. I really don't think Coach Shula doesn't even need to worry about the blitz. Just let those 4 guys get active.
Yeah, I think that's the recipe for this team is the defense improves significantly this year.
Kind of sneaky, though. Darius Williams got benched. Emmanuel Forbes and Kobe Durant were playing on the outside, and Ahkello Witherspoon was barely playing on the outside. He is coming back from an injury, but those 2 guys are about as healthy as they can be, which means because Darius Williams is their highest paid defensive player, just someone to keep an eye on as the next weeks and potentially month and a half continues. But it is really, really interesting to me because they aren't asking their secondary to do so much because their front 7 is doing everything. And Chris Shula is mixing up his fronts. He's got odd fronts. He's got even fronts. I mentioned this last week. He's got Braden Fisk out wide as a 9 technique with a bunch of other guys who are usually on the edge now on the inside. They're sort of inverting their line in different ways. So they're going to give this embattled Titans offensive line pretty much everything it can handle. And so Cam Ward, again, I fear has to have sort of that Superman game. I think he'll make his plays, though.
Dan Moore was a disaster for the Titans last week, and you call the offensive line embattled. If that remains true.
Was that the right word, or should I let you Google
that's
it for
perfect.
me?
No, the wrong word was bet. We can't say bet on NFL media, but of course we kind of can because no one knows it's true. I'm making a joke about the NFL.
You just let me know when you want to Google a word for me again. Thanks.
I mean, creditable. I mean, you had me
I had
wondering
to Google it because I wasn't certain.
I started to feel crazy. I was like, that is a word, is it? But their offensive line, that's what this whole team is built around.
Right.
First round picks. Huge money to Dan Moore. J.C. Latham has a hip injury, and we're not sure about his status. And Dan Moore had a nightmare game a week ago. And so if they're not good, like this team is not going to be good. I do want to have the Cam Ward conversation quickly. I do love your survivor pick too, so much so that I actually texted Quab it's going to be my pick. But now that I'm thinking out loud about it, I'm changing my mind because I'm thinking we're giving these survivor picks for the people because we are not allowed to B-word, but the people out there are. But in reality, we're also, I guess, having a competition within this room. We want to have our survivor picks against each other. So it does seem stupid to have the same one. So I will hold off and come up with another one. But just know, I do think it is absolutely a great pick. I got some text this week, Patrick, from our friend of the show, Kevin Clark, and the takeaways from those texts was, have you watched this game yet? It's Cam Ward and 10 bozos out there. I now know how Justin Herbert feels. Justin Herbert fan.
Noted Miami fan Kevin Clark, by the way, too.
He's like, this is how, he's like, I know how Justin Herbert, fans feel over the last few years. It was tough. It wasn't all perfect for Cam Ward, but man, he had a lot of great plays.
Yeah, there were drops. There were some in the fourth quarter, especially. He was firing seam balls at 200 miles an hour to Chigo Okonkwo, where, like, I understand not catching those, but there was never this. If folks were watching the Monday night game where you saw J.J. McCarthy kind of evolve as the game went on and get that confidence, Cam Ward had that at the start of the game, at the very start of the game, and to an extent where now I'm wondering what he did to the schedule makers to start with offensive line problems to start Broncos, then Rams, and then in 2 weeks they're the Texans.
It's
on
absolutely
the road.
brutal.
Like, give the kid a break, please.
God.
It's brutal because he had some just wild man throws. The throw across his body from his own goal line, which was money, and just the things he was trying. This is a great quarterback matchup. I think in a perfect world, he would evolve into a Matthew Stafford-like player, and Stafford is already right there.
He plays fearlessly like Stafford.
Right. He's a walking advertisement for a mortal. I think Jourdan, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Jourdan. Who? Stafford. Right. I mean, don't you think a mortal's going to go crazy now?
I'm not giving them any more pop.
Okay, fine. Jourdan has gotten so much grief, I think, over the years of being, you've covered the Rams, so we talk about the Rams. I don't think we talk about them anymore. That, if anything, we were underselling that Stafford performance last week. Like, he just came back and he looked absolute peak Stafford. So, for the record, I picked them to win the division on NFL.com. Like, as long as it's a healthy Stafford, they're going to be fine. And man, he looks healthy.
14 points did not tell the story either. Poor Jordan Whittington could not catch a break. Caught everything else. Couldn't catch a break. A huge special teams play called back because of a penalty. Troy Reader, Rams fans, I know. Makes a catch downfield, potentially puts them in huge position to score actual points, which they had very little of. Called back again due to a penalty. And Jordan Whittington was playing a little fullback for them, which is very intriguing if you're interested in that position. And significantly more 12 personnel as well, which I think is a factor, especially settling down their run game, especially taking the teeth out of more fearsome defensive fronts. And they're going to face another one this week.
I'm not often conspiratorial, but as good as Matthew Stafford played, and we mentioned a brand relationship.
No.
I'm starting to wonder where we fall.
This is what they want.
I don't know.
We'll come back in like week 5. Now that's gonna have to be after 4 games of getting hit, and we'll see. But he looked fresh.
Yeah, could be some magic beans. Speaking of magic, let's get up to the Pacific Northwest, where the Seattle Seahawks will be leaving this week to fly to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. The Steelers are giving up 2.5 points. The over/under is 40.5. Adam Amin, Mark Sanchez, and Christina Pink on the call. Jourdan, the Seahawks fans saw a little Sam Darnold throwing the ball to JSN. Will he throw the ball to other people in this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I mean, he has to, right?
I don't know.
Like, if they would like to win this game. 2 matchups that I really love in this game is DK Metcalf, now Pittsburgh Steeler, versus his former team. Another little dabble of revenge, Patrick.
He's going to try.
Trying to get those to you. Also,
he thought he ran angry against the Jets.
Also, this is Jalen Ramsey versus the former NFC West team that he used to hate playing against, or kind of love playing against as well. This is former Super Bowl teammates, Jalen Ramsey and Cooper Kupp, potentially squaring off a couple of times, depending on where either of them lines up. Jalen Ramsey was playing on the outside by the end of that game because Joey Porter Jr. got injured. But this is kind of exciting. There's dabbles of revenge all throughout.
How about-
Aaron Rodgers was almost the Rams quarterback if they couldn't get a deal done with Matthew Stafford.
Sam Darnold was almost the Steelers quarterback. How about Aaron Rodgers' revenge on Sam Darnold for him being like one of the 17 quarterbacks the Steelers wanted before they signed Aaron Rodgers?
And for being friends with Rainn Wilson. You know Aaron Rodgers would love that.
I didn't know any of that, but I do love that. I know
Just there's so much dabbling of revenge and intrigue.
play action, I think, tells a story in this game. So Rodgers famously throughout his career has not been play action friendly. Didn't want to do it that much. And he ends up with 10 of his attempts last week in play action. 3 of his touchdowns were in play action, was very effective. Looked a lot of like a Arthur Smith offense. Where on the other side, we were sold a bill of goods in the preseason with Clint Kubiak. We think under center play action. They had the lowest play action rate in the league. It was almost like he was Clint Kubiak trying to Jedi mind trick the 49ers. We're not going to do what you think we're going to do. We're going to do the total opposite. And it didn't really work for the Seahawks. So that's something I'm going to watch if they go back to what we thought they were going to be.
It's kind of strange, too. And I saw a couple of plays that were really outstanding by Fred Warner, who was reading his keys and really, because obviously he knows the kettle of Kubiaks that we've ascertained is going to be the name for the grouping of Kubiak people that are in the league. And he really read the fullback really, really well. So there's a lot of things that the linebackers in San Francisco were doing to sort of say, hey, we know what you're going to do, which might have hamstrung Kubiak as OC a little bit and made him deviate from what he wanted to do. I have no doubt that they're going to try to get back to doing that. What I thought was curious is that Aaron Rodgers didn't throw an attempt past 20 air yards despite all that play action. And I do wonder if they start to sling it out a little bit more. It's going to be tough.
That's kind of the new Aaron Rodgers, at least that we've seen over the last few years.
But that's like only the third time in his career that's happened. So, it's going to be interesting because you have to get the ball down the field. I don't know if they can much against this Seattle defense, though.
I think, as far as Tariq Woolen's performance, because I know Seahawks fans are going to look at a couple of very glaring plays and place a lot of blame on Tariq Woolen. I don't necessarily think it was all that bad considering how close the game was.
Yeah.
This was more of an issue with the Seattle offense where Sam Darnold got pressured 32% of his dropbacks, higher than any game with the Minnesota Vikings. And I say this not just to build up Geno, because we said this at the onset. It's just a fundamentally different situation for Sam Darnold when the pressure is coming in that way, especially the interior pressure, where it causes him to not play like the peak Sam Darnold that we've seen. And interior pressure is going to bother a lot of quarterbacks, but it seems to bother Darnold more than others.
I was curious when I put that game on to see him, like how he struggled. And in the end, I thought Darnold played fine. Actually, these two quarterbacks, I think Rodgers was good, but he wasn't as good as the numbers. And Darnold wasn't great, but he wasn't as bad or as quiet as the numbers. I think he did his job. They just had like the highest run rate versus expected of any team in the league, and they weren't that effective. It was a lot of Charbonnet, and it was okay, but like there was no Arroyo on the offense. There's no explosion on that offense. I think Cooper Kupp makes you a slow offense. I'm not rooting against him, but he led the team in snaps, and he kind of had a nightmare game. He was a problem in the running game multiple times, blowing his block on plays that got blown up, and obviously didn't give them much through the air. So they need to get more out of them. And I'm glad you mentioned Reek. Mike McDonald was asked about him on Wednesday whether he will start this week, and he said we'll see. So they might be.
Speaking of coaches that are like pretty honest, maybe without meaning to be at the podium, we've had
Mike McDonald.
We've had some moments we've watched from him. Because they're depending on, it seems like if things aren't working, they're trying to depend on Jackson Smith and Jigba so much, and he's lining up over 60% of the time on the outside. And yes, he's getting fed a lot of targets, but they need layers, they need dimension in that passing game, and they also need to get off the ball better in the run game, because a good running back is not going to fix your run blocking. It can complement it. It's not going to fix it.
There's so many mystery box teams. Almost every team is at this stage of the season. But these two would be in like my inner circle of the biggest mystery box team. I would stay away from this game. I have no idea who is going to win this game.
It's an avoid at all costs. And maybe even eyeballs. Just kidding. I am not averting my eyeballs from our next game in any way whatsoever. I think this could be a calculator game. Jacksonville at Cincinnati, where the Bengals are giving up 3.5 points after feeling like they were going to score 3.5 points last week, Greg. The over under 50.5. We love numbers. Chris Lewis, Logan Ryan, Tiffany Blackman on the call. Do the Bengals bounce back and beat Trev and company at home?
I will pick them for game debut, I think, but I would not go with the 3.5 points. The Jaguars were impressive enough, and I just think it's a coin flip game in general. And Zach Taylor's struck a weird pose to me, like the last couple of weeks. Like I like him in front of the media. I've gotten to like him more as I've watched him more, but he was remarkably positive after last week's game after they had negative 18 yards in the fourth quarter. And like he was like, he was just saying like, this was great. This was amazing. They had 7 yards after halftime. And then this week, I mean, he is really excited about this opportunity.
What would it mean to win? It would be your first win in week 2 since becoming head coach.
Yeah, I just want to be 2-0. I know I haven't been 2-0 since I've been here. That I can tell you.
I mean, I want them to aim higher, than scraping out a win with
What a difference a missed field
negative
goal makes.
18 yards against the Browns.
Yeah, 3 and out on their last 4 drives. On the positive for the Bengals, I mean, this is a big question. They'll find out this week against Liam Cohen and Jacksonville and ETN and Bashal Tutin and guys who ran the ball really well last week against the somewhat hapless Carolina Panthers. If they can still run the ball against the Bengals, my question is, did the Bengals fix their run defense? Because their run defense looked pretty dang good last week.
And week 2 makes for those, was that the Browns?
Yes.
Or was that
Exactly.
this Bengals defense? I do think after watching Joe Flacco get around 2.84 seconds per throw and seeing Joe Flacco throw on the run and play very well and look very, very comfortable, I don't see I know Trevor Lawrence had a bad underthrow of Travis Hunter that got picked off by J.C. Horn. One of the best plays in week 1. If the pass rush is like this, the Jags will score 40 points.
Wow. See, I thought the D-line showed something a little bit from Cincinnati last week. Shamar Stewart, I think, flashed a little bit. I'm like, okay, he's going to do some things. Inside, you mentioned they have bodies where I'm like, at least you could look at it and think there's room for improvement. I'm really worried about their offensive line. On the interior, the Bengals were giving up pressure throughout, and I know everyone's like, just throw it away. Burrow's always terrible in week 1, division opponent, the Browns struggle. I get that, but I think this offensive line could be an issue all season, and it's going up against a Jags pass rush that I think people aren't going to be sleeping on much longer. Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker and Eric Armstead while he's healthy. That's a difficult matchup, and I think I'd be a little worried about that offensive line if I was a Bengals fan.
If I am remembering correctly, wasn't Josh Hines Allen like one of the highest graded players?
I think he had the most pressures of anyone in the league.
Yeah. I mean, he jumped off the screen. He played fantastic. It's like he kind of heard the question marks surrounding that entire defensive group and the structure of it. And let's not forget, it's all new coaches over there. Offense, defense, special teams, head coach. To me, it's like I see the potential of another strong start by the Bengals, but they could not run the ball, which is going to really hurt them. And then in the entire second half of the game, just completely deteriorated, no explosive plays, negative yardage. This is an issue that, I don't know. I mean, you really expect more from Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase led team. And to me, it's, again, is week 1 a liar kind of a thing.
I think the liar might be the way we feel about this team when they're not playing the Cleveland Browns, like the Schwartz of it all. In hindsight, this is what happens.
My Schwartz.
The Cincinnati Bengals play this defense, and like Myles Garrett having sacks on back-to-back plays. Like that's something I'm willing to chalk up and say that they're going to play better on offense. But again, the defense got 0 pressures on Joe Flacco in the first half. 0.
So you would say to the Jaguars defense, like, may the Schwartz be with you.
Absolutely.
I'd
say that to everybody.
Take that game plan.
I can't say my favorite Spaceballs quote.
Run it back. I also want to just say, I know people are talking and like, how come Greg hasn't said anything about this? Like, what's happening? There's just a lot of whispers. But as the president of Travis Hunter Nation, we are not concerned.
That was going to be a touchdown that J.C. Horn picked off.
We are holding firm. The offensive and defensive rookie of the year predictions might have been like a slight bit of extra dip on the chip on the defensive side. But Liam Cohen said this week they're going to crank up his defensive snaps a little bit. It might take a little bit of time for all to get integrated, but Hunter Nation has no concerns whatsoever.
Also, the number one thing the Jaguars wanted to do, I mean, not only was it clear we talked earlier this week about how a coach's script and then consecutive plays kind of shows you what he wants to do or what he wants you to think he's about. They wanted to run the ball. They wanted to run it down Carolina's throat, and they did. And they knew that was the easiest way, the best way to probably dominate them. Even with all the questions that they've had, they're not going to put an inordinate amount of pressure on the quarterback or on the perimeter receivers before they have to. So I have no doubt they're going to ramp up his workload.
I might have to grab this game. We haven't assigned games yet for the early window. I am very intrigued about Jaguars Bengals. Let's take one last break here on the podcast. We're going to wrap the show with Patrick Claybon's team, my team, and a spicy Monday night doubleheader. Back on NFL Daily, wrapping up the AFC Week 2 slate. Patrick always announces the broadcasters for each game, right? But I see it. It's on the sheet. Yeah. And it just occurred to me, looking at this CBS crew doing Browns-Ravens, Tom McCarthy, our friend of the show, Ross Tucker, he's been a guest, and Amanda Balionis.
New friend of the show.
Who's a new friend of the show. I was unaware of this, but one of our producers, Jason, showed me an Instagram video she had put out on her feed like a month ago. It was like a day in the life, and she was hiking, and she said, now it's time to listen to my favorite NFL podcast, and she just holds up NFL Daily. Woo-hoo! And even did like the scroll thing where you actually saw the feed of it. Shout out to JP Acosta. It was his episode with me. So thank you, Amanda, wherever you are.
Are you upset that she followed me on Instagram and not you?
I don't, as long as she's listening to the show, that's all I need.
Whatever it takes.
Thank you, Amanda. I see you.
We appreciate you, Amanda. You and Tom and Ross get a chance to see the Cleveland Browns visit the Baltimore Ravens, who are an 11.5-point favorite. This Ravens team, Jourdan, can beat anybody in the NFL. They can also lose to anybody in the NFL, as history shows. 44.5, the over-under. That's a lot of points. But Baltimore did score a lot of points against the Buffalo Bills. How do you think they will perform against the Cleveland Browns?
I mean, anything kind of goes in these ones, right? Because, I mean, it's Ravens-Browns, and the Browns defense looked like the Browns defense, and I don't know that the Ravens are going to be able to run the ball as effectively against the Browns defense as they were able to do against the Bills defense. I mean, how are you kind of feeling about this, Patrick? Are you getting a little nervous?
Well, yeah, I think in certain situations, seeing the way that Jair Alexander was covering Josh Palmer towards the end of the game, and I know that both Tillman and Jerry Jeudy had drops that led to turnovers that ultimately cost the Cleveland Browns the game. And Joe Flacco played well. I think the Ravens front can get more pressure on Joe Flacco than the Bengals did. But ultimately, I'm a fan who has seen a team have catastrophic collapses and losses. And so, I come into this exceedingly negative, but then I see Gregg's confidence, and it clears up the skies for him.
It's not that high, but yes, I will take the Ravens as my survivor pick.
Woo!
Mixed feelings.
Well, now I can't lose because all I want is you guys to lose.
What if I told you this? This is courtesy of Mike Sando in his Pick 6 column at The Athletic. Since 2000, when leading by 9 to 16 points in the fourth quarter over the last four seasons, 7 teams have done so, 20 games total, 13 losses. Baltimore accounts for 6 of them.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
This is what this team does, is have these catastrophic losses. Now, I wouldn't expect it 2 weeks in a row, but I do think the Browns played really well last week, and they have a better chance to be competitive than people think. I don't like that 11.5. I don't like that it's a division matchup. I don't like the idea that, the Ravens are going to try extra hard this week because they lost. That should be a segment, by the way. That should maybe be a sponsored segment. Patrick's try extra hard game of the week, because the Ravens would be that team this week. But both of these teams actually really would.
But also, again, I've told this story way too many times on the pod. If you go to the facility in Owings Mills and you look around and you see Ray Lewis, you see J.O., you see all of these Ed Reed photos of everybody that's contributed. And then you're like, oh, there's Joe Flacco. But it just so happens that Joe Flacco is standing behind Marshall Yanda in the picture.
Oh.
Maybe Joe Flacco is the one that's getting revenge against the team that didn't want him.
Let's listen to Joe Flacco. I do think it's amazing. This is essentially a homecoming game for the Ravens. They're honoring the Super Bowl championship team, and Joe Flacco just happens to be, coming into town.
I got to play him a couple years ago, but going back to Baltimore is definitely a little bit different story. It is somewhat surprising, honestly, because I've been gone for a decent amount of time now. So, the fact that I haven't had a chance to go back is a little surprising. I think I'm very capable of just seeing it as another division game, but it will be cool to go back in that stadium. I haven't had a chance to do it since I've played there. I really love playing there. It's an awesome place to play. It's an awesome venue. It's an awesome atmosphere. They do a great job. So I love playing there. So I think in that respect, it will be pretty cool to go back for sure.
This is not a revenge game. Do not put on the internet that this is a revenge game.
Is he going to go Rodgers and then after the game be like, yeah, it was really good to beat the Baltimore Ravens?
I think he genuinely likes the Ravens because they changed his life. In one of the top moments in NFL Network history. I will never forget it just because I happened to have been watching it live, and I remember I wrote the article on NFL.com about it, like reacting to it that night. He sits on the dais with Rich Eisen and everyone after winning that Super Bowl, one of the very best playoff runs any quarterback has ever had, like without any qualifiers. Joe Flacco had that, and he had it in the middle of a contract run in his contract year. And he said, Steve Bisciotti told me if this happens, I can go pound on his desk and really stick it to him. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I just remember being like, yes, you're feeling yourself, Joe Flacco, right after the Super Bowl. And he gave him like a market-changing contract. He was probably like the 13th best quarterback in the league, and he was by far the highest paid quarterback.
I love it. And he is not wrong. That is one of the coolest places to play in the entire NFL. It's one of the coolest home stadiums in their intros and how gothic it is, and especially night games. When the sun goes down, like it just gets so much fun there. I love it. What I also love is, there's a lot not to like about the Browns and how they've done business over the last couple of years. But in terms of this season and what it is, it's kind of, just playing for the future and developing young players. And I know they want to be competitive. I'm not ruling that out. And Joe Flacco certainly wants to be competitive. But you've got to feel really good watching some of these young guys play this last week and their debuts in the NFL. Greg and I talked about it a little bit earlier this week on a previous show. It just
good omens.
It's a good omen. It to me, it's like latch onto those guys, watch those guys play, and think about 2026 and what you can start to build out of this new core.
Are you a little worried about the Ravens defense? 9 guys last week, specifically to this week, played 58 snaps. Some of them 80 to 90 snaps. They were on the field a lot. It's always on my radar early in the season. You've got Chidobe Awuzie starting over Jair Alexander. And
Jair, case that's not even close. It's the right decision.
Right. Jair Alexander really struggling. The pass rush, other than Madubuike, just wasn't there. This is an easier matchup, certainly, in terms of their pass rush.
And there was a lot of buzz that Mike Green was going to come in and make a difference off the edge, but, you just got to see it.
Little concerning.
Yeah, it is concerning. They won't be on the field as much. The rare, only Ravens' problem of having an offense that was too explosive, especially in the second half against the Buffalo Bills, where you would like to see more of a constrictor, Sean McVay type drive towards the end of a game to grind things out. Where I don't think the home run potential against this Brown defense is as high as it is against Buffalo, which is like, oh, no, bad news. Maybe it's good news. See if Baltimore can slowly move the ball, give those guys a break, a little bit of time off. To our next AFC matchup, the New England Patriots coming off a loss at home to the Las Vegas Raiders. All the boys and all the girls are begging to play Miami. They are 1.5-point favorites with an over-under of 44.5. Andrew Catalan, Charles Davis, Jason McCourty, and A.J. Ross on the call. Greg, your squad gets a chance to bounce back against the team whose vibes are down horrendous.
Yeah. Wait, which team has the vibes down horrendous?
Greg, come on.
Both.
A team that almost got beat 30-0.
Go to Foxborough. Go listen to Boston Sports Radio.
Yeah, I'll pass, Greg.
I will too, but
I was gonna say,
I'm just imagining what's
let's
there.
see if I can get to it on my long, long list of things. I don't know. Darn, I'm not gonna.
I think if you were just ranking just based off week 1 performance, the Patriots would have been one of the 5 worst teams in the NFL. They were the only team to give up more than 5 20-plus yard plays. They gave up 9. Guys were wide open in the secondary. They decided to blitz a lot. Maybe that's going to be their strategy. Seemed like a bad one against Geno Smith, who flamed them last year. I know it's a different staff, but he knew exactly what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Busts all over the back end. No one can really cover. Christian Gonzalez does not look like he is going to play in this game because he missed on Wednesday. And then on the offensive side, it was a little more cohesive, but Drake May did not look good. Like, he certainly didn't look better than he was as a rookie. He looked rather jumpy. So it doesn't surprise me that the Dolphins are favored in this game. To me, it's just a toss-up of 2 teams that I just don't know what we're going to get out of. One of them could pop up this week and just look much better. I just don't know. But to me, it seems equally likely that it's the Dolphins that pop up and look better than it is the Patriots. Because the Dolphins at least have some continuity and have been together.
Yeah, and I can just almost guarantee, especially because the Miami defense did not look good, but I can almost guarantee that Anthony Weaver is looking at what Patrick Graham did with that Raiders front to make Drake May look frazzled and look hassled. They were mixing up odd and even fronts. Patrick Graham does not play generally like a 4-3, but they were mixing up, presenting more even looks than maybe that they had done in the past. They were doing a lot of different types of zone coverages behind it. This is something where you look at that and all of these things the Dolphins defense is capable of doing. We have seen it, despite the fact that they've lost some players. Even, up front, they actually got some guys back and healthy, so they should be able to at least make Drake May look confused. But it is kind of weird. It was weird seeing it because and I know I brought this up a lot, so forgive me, but when I was at those joint practices and they were going against a very confusing defense, they were using Travion Henderson as an outlet. They were calming Drake May down, giving him a lot of options, giving him a lot of pressure beater options, giving him a lot of just things that settle a young quarterback. And then also, they were reining him in intentionally to not use his legs at will. But if you're looking rattled, like, you've got to just at a certain point, I mean, what is it? He ran around 4 times this last game. You've got to at least say, okay, if you're not feeling comfortable, go make some plays, go make something happen.
It's a trend. So I don't listen to Boston Sports Radio, but I do listen to Tom Curran, who's one of the best in the game.
And a great accent also, the best.
Outstanding.
Voice.
And Greg Bedard. And he talked about it on his podcast this week. They made a comment like, Drake May has been so accurate and so calm and so good in every practice that they've watched just about. And literally every time so far, and this includes the preseason, I watch all the snaps, that, there's been a scoreboard in referees, he's just throwing the ball all over the place. Now, whether that's a coincidence or not, it is a fact that he's kind of been throwing the ball all over the place in terms of his accuracy and his comfort in the pocket. And they're not sure what to make of that, really, other than they just think this offseason it has been a trend, and May even alluded to it, that he's been a little hyped up for these games at the beginning and he's sailing passes. But, you would think he would maybe settle into the game. If anything, it got worse as last week went on. Doesn't mean he's not going to get out of it, but right now he's in that mode.
But I think Josh McDaniels' reputation is to make things harder on the quarterback, even when things are stressful. And so here's a concept. What if you didn't do that? What if you made things easier on the quarterback when you see things get stressful or too much maybe for the quarterback to handle? As capable as Drake May has been, and that's very true, how calm and truly collected and just sort of okay, I don't have that option. I'm going to go here, or I'm going to take it and run, or whatever, and very, very poised. If you're not feeling that way, don't stick and do the same things that you started the game with. Make things easier. Get the quarterback to settle in. Run the ball. These types of things that would really help, I think.
Their run game stunk. And if it stinks, they're not going to be a good team.
And I think your tendency to feel like, well, yeah, Drake's got it. The problem might be everywhere else. I don't think that's bias for you to feel that way. I think the problems may be more surrounding Drake May, especially on the sideline, than Drake May himself, being in these situations. And I think the spot here is a spot where you can feel comfortable that things are going to go just fine. Because if you think that the Finns are going to speed him up and blitz, especially after last week when Dimes was very, very comfortable, they're one of the, in the bottom half of the league in blitz rate
Mhm.
and success rate when blitzing to that. I don't think that's in the bag at all for them. Like I really don't think that is a part of the tools that they can utilize against Drake May. So it's a get healthy game for New England.
I don't know, because I think if there's the biggest weakness and there are a few on this Patriots team, it's like linebacker and the back end with cornerback, and then it's the offensive line until proven otherwise. And I think the number one strength for this Dolphins team, in theory, is their pass rush. And they were okay last week, but Danny Dimes was getting it out so fast. His time to throw was just like they had answers and everything was getting out fast. So I think that could be a mismatch. On the other side, though, look, Milton Williams had a nice game. Harold Landry had a nice game. They've got some players certainly up front, and the Dolphins lost 2 starting offensive linemen right off the bat this season, or at least Austin Jackson's not there yet. And then they lost James Daniel to an injury. And then their rookie Jonah Savanea, who supposedly they swiped from the Patriots. And then the Patriots ended up with Travion Henderson instead. He's really been struggling, Savanea. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Also something to keep an eye on is a comment from Brian McCarthy, official PR spokesman for the NFL. We mentioned Tyreek Hill's latest domestic violence allegations, which is part of a divorce proceedings that TMZ obtained, and those results are sealed, but the Associated Press has written about it as well. And they're out there, and you can find out specifically what they were. We went over it on Monday night, but he just says it's standard policy for the league to review a matter such as this. So at this point, as far as we know, Tyreek Hill is going to be available for this game, but stay tuned.
Let's go to the next matchup. It is a Houston Texans team that lost in SoFi Stadium, playing host to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, fresh off of shutting down the Falcons' run game and getting a closing seconds win thanks to the efforts of Emeka Egbuka. 42.5 is the number. Texans again favored by 3. Chris Fowler, Dan Orlovsky, Louis Riddick, Katie George, and our friend Peter Schrager on the call as, well, Jourdan, this Texans team went through a lot, and now they get to give a lot to Baker Mayfield. How do you feel about their options at home?
Okay, so 2 things. One, I feel like this has the potential to be a like blood and guts Baker Mayfield type of game, because in watching this Houston Texans defense in person, they're hitting, guys. They're hitting, and they look awesome. And I mean, holding the Rams to 14 points in an opener, in a McVay opener, is kind of a big deal. Despite the fact that the Texans offense got as much as they gave and were limited themselves, that defense, they are aggressive, they are physical. They pressured Stafford. I mean, he was hit 3 times. One of them was kind of a weird bad snap, and he had to run back and get the ball and all that. They pressured him quite a bit, especially off that right side, and especially when the guards came out and got him in the interior. And so I think that when you're going up against kind of a magical moment for this revamped Bucs offensive line, which we didn't really talk about too much because it was kind of a surprise.
No, I missed it on Sunday.
And I will tell you, like, it was a total surprise. So obviously we know they're missing Tristan Wirfs, and they will be for another couple of weeks. But Todd Bowles pulled a fast one off of what he was watching in practice when they decided to move Graham Barton to left tackle from center, and they tried him out for a couple of snaps in practice, like 4 days ago, 4 days before the opener, and then Todd Bowles was like, hey, that looks pretty good. We should try that full time. So then they moved him full time to left tackle from center. Ben Bredesen kicked inside from left guard to center. Michael Jourdan, not that one, a late summer addition, elevated from the practice squad, then played left guard. And they fared okay. They fared pretty well. Good, not great. A lot of pressure, not a lot of hits on Baker, but a lot of pressure. It's like going against like a bona fide defensive line, you know, and one that's proven. The Falcons did get 15 pressures, but this is a very different beast here with Houston.
I think you really saw it in the run game. I mean, you saw those pressures, but the run game was disjointed, and it reminded me so much of the way last year started for the Bucs, which, if you remember, they were one of the worst running teams in the league for about a month, and then suddenly they were like poetry in motion. Like everything was clicking, and Bucky Irving is off to the races, and they were extremely disjointed. Like, it's just something you can see with your eyes that they weren't all on the same page. It seemed like one player was like blowing the block all the time. like they were working so hard against the Atlanta Falcons. It does make you wonder how this week is going to go against the Texans. There was a 16-play drive. This always cracks me up. That they had to kick a 47-yard field goal. And there was nothing there whenever that happens, it's usually because you have a bunch of penalties that you had to back up. Nope, there was one 5-yard penalty early in the drive. It wasn't about that. It took 10 plays to get to the 50. It took another 6 to get to the 30. And it was just like that. And that's not normal for this Bucs offense. So I think, maybe Todd Bowles was really hooting and hollering because he knows he stole one at a time of year where maybe they're just figuring some things out.
It was almost 3 seconds for Baker Mayfield to throw.
Yeah.
2.95 second time to throw against the Falcons pass rush and all that they've done. It's not going to be 3 seconds against Texans.
Right.
The Houston Texans. It's not. And so whatever changes that they made late, especially Baker hitting Emeka Egbuka for that touch, I don't think the wide open opportunities would be there, but perhaps a chance to get more consistent in the ground game and to adjust to the changes that they surprisingly made up front right before the game started.
And we know on the other side that Todd Bowles is just going to pressure the crap out of, CJ Stroud.
It's the same issue really on the other side.
He's really going to do everything he can. There were some bright spots, I think, with how CJ Stroud specifically and some of the scheme, we mentioned it earlier in the show, handled some of the pressure, baiting the rushers and all of that. That's not always going to work against a Todd Bowles defense, especially if they're bringing extra pressure, they're bringing blitzes, things like that. I think that the Texans can run the ball. I mean, Nick Chubb looked really good.
I thought he looked good.
Over a 50% success rate, 4.6 yards per carry, and you could argue they didn't run it enough. They looked, and Nick Chubb looked really solid running the ball.
That's with 4 unique combinations of offensive linemen, by the way. Did Nick Chubb look good? Like the Texans to be having these problems already, and despite that, Chubb being successful.
I can hear all the Claymates out there, after Jourdan points out Chubb, he's like, Patrick said that weeks ago. He said he was going to look good. And
as they should. They should have pointed
the
that.
Claymates are absolutely
They're
right.
a loud group.
They're both me, by the way.
Essentially,
all accounts.
Yeah, these two teams are kind of mirror images of each other. Because I was wondering, why did Cam Robinson start again at left tackle? That was a total flip of everything that we heard, but it was because of an injury at guard, and then they wanted to move Titus Howard inside, so then they moved Ursery where he wasn't at to right tackle, and Robinson over to the left. Then their center got hurt. Then I think a guard got hurt, and so it's all jumbled up, and that's concerning for the Texans.
Cam Robinson came back in, but Jake Andrews, the center, did not come back in. So that's something definitely to watch, especially with that interior pressure that the Bucs like to bring.
One last quick point on this game is just, I think the old Antoine Winfield is back. One of the biggest reasons why the Bucs defense was not as good last year as he was the year before was because of Antoine Winfield. And he had a play at the end of that Falcons game where he absolutely lit up Casey Washington, the Falcons receiver. And it was the second to last play of that drive, and it reminded me so much of the game-winning plays near the goal line that he made throughout that Bucs run.
And he almost made one of those against Penix, where he was out of bounds, but he had stolen the ball and was running the other way. And it's like, oh, well, here goes Winfield Jr. again, game-wrecking right in the end zone.
They don't call him Antoine Loosefield, guys.
She was just waiting for that one.
Love it.
You could see me shaking my pen as excited.
Let's get to our final game of our NFC preview as the AFC preview, as the Las Vegas Raiders get a chance to be at home in Las Vegas, where they are getting points, 3.5 points against the 1-0 division-leading Los Angeles Chargers and their quarterback, Justin Herbert. It is Monday Night Football. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salters, and Laura Rutledge on the call, Greg. Do the Chargers push to a commanding lead in the West?
I'll pick them to win. I'll probably pick them to win by more than 3.5. It's just the Raiders defense. I want to see it more. I was amazed. I mean, they played really well.
Looked so much better than I think people expected them to look. And they talked about it post-game. They were very vocal. They know what the expectation or lack thereof was. And it's scheme and effort. And that's Patrick Graham and Pete Carroll together, a balance of scheme and effort. And that's what you need because you have a deficit of talent on that side.
Right. And I think that can go a long way. And it means they can overachieve compared to expectation. But we've only seen them match up with one offense so far. And it was an offense that was really disjointed. So I'm as surprised as anyone that Devin White and Jamal Adams absolutely were difference makers for a defense in 2025 last week. And so was Jermaine Pratt. They all were out there making plays. This will be a much tougher test against a Chargers offense that maybe for the first time in the Herbert era, but definitely for the most in the last few years, like looks deep in terms of the amount of ways they can beat you through the air, and I think eventually on the ground, but at least the diversity of the type of players that Herbert is throwing to. Year 3, Quentin Johnston is not year 1 and 2, Quentin Johnson. And Keenan Allen this year is not Chicago Bears Keenan Allen.
He's like, I saw the other side and I didn't like it.
And you have these rookies just like kind of waiting on the bench who are interesting too. It's Ladd McConkey's year too. It's a nice group.
And it also felt like in the opener, and again, it was the opener against the Chiefs, but 2025's Gregg Roman isn't Gregg Roman of previous years.
He's passing on early downs,
They were
Patrick.
so pass heavy, and I think that's a credit to Gregg Roman, because like we don't get that version of Quentin Johnston. Like we don't get Ladd being very creative in terms, like Ladd was out there setting picks. Like it's like the team's far and away number one is grinding so other guys can get open, including a guy who's been getting maligned all the time. Like I loved it. I loved the Chargers offense in the opener.
Yeah, and their run pass balance, especially early in the down, is like skewing now toward pass, which is crazy. And even when they ran, Omari and Hampton looked good. They need to run the ball a little bit more efficiently, a little bit better. But they looked really good in both phases. They looked more balanced to me. They're letting Justin Herbert kind of I think just grow into himself a little bit more of what we know he can be, and kind of build that confidence and a little bit of that spice.
He was really feeling himself.
Yeah.
Like the slide that was very saucy at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And the fadeaway throwback across the field
Yeah.
to Quentin Johnston on that touchdown pass, like Herbo was feeling it.
He's in like a celebrity relationship now. He's literally in first place. Like, when have the Chargers ever been in first place? Even for a week. I can't remember the last time there was this much optimism about the Chargers. And now I feel terrible about saying they're going to cover 3.5. It's because like that's the moment if you're a Chargers fan, which I'm not like a fan, but I'm definitely rooting for good things for Herbo. That's the moment where it gets taken away from you.
I think that one of the things I was most impressed with was even when they lost Rashawn Slater and then Joe Alt moved over to the left side, he looked incredible.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he looks like he's never going to relinquish that spot again.
Alt right tackle, that's over.
Yeah. Or alt right delete opposing edge rushers. And that's tough because Max Crosby is kind of in a solo show. So for now, we'll see if someone else emerges along that defensive line. But like, it's going to be basically Max Crosby trying to make something happen, and Joe Alt plus a cast that looked really impressive, that blocked really well. A lot of really big skill guys chipping all the time and making some of the heavier layers when they want to go heavy pass or when they want to go heavy run come to life. I was really, like I said, I was really impressed with this Raiders defense. But to me, I think this is a points game. I do. I think it's a points game because Geno is playing like
Geno looked extremely comfortable too.
He's playing like Geno.
These were two of the best quarterback performances of week one. I know he had that interception, but he is not afraid to make the tough throw. He has seen the field well. For him to do it 1 week into being with Chip Kelly is really promising. And if I had one concern about the Chargers in this matchup, it is their pass rush. Yeah, I know Bosa wasn't healthy last year, but Mac and that group overall, interior on the edge, I think they're hoping to be average. I don't think they're going to be above average. I think in week one they weren't great. So I think that's if you give Geno time, he's going to cook you.
Some of that was Mahomes, though. There was a play where Khalil Mack won instantaneously and was chasing Mahomes, who makes this back cross body throw to Hollywood Brown, where it's like, wiki.
Yeah, I think some of that, if I'm watching that, some of that I think they're trying not to, like I mentioned before, overrush on a Mahomes who's just going to flush and escape and then make something insane happen downfield. This will be a bigger, and Geno can move, but he's not Patrick Mahomes in terms of making those like I'm parallel to the ground and still somehow throwing the ball down the field kind of throws. The thing that I'm worried about is Brock Bowers, because he told Tom Pelissero at the game that he is fine. He banged up his knee. He told him he was fine. Pete Carroll, you can check this right now, Greg, if you're able to. But Pete Carroll has said earlier this week that he's day-to-day. This is something where their offense runs through this guy, and as it should. He's incredible. He's playing incredibly, like he's picking up right where he left off. Just a little something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, they get an extra day to recover, so their Wednesday is an actual Thursday. We are taping these preview shows on Thursday, so especially with the Monday night games, but it's true really of all of them.
Mhm.
You got to keep, on top of the injury situations because he, other than Geno, is the most important.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the most important player, I think, in the entire franchise. he really is. And this is one with Max Crosby, but I would put Brock ahead of him. So they need him out there because everything kind of feeds off of him. Suddenly, Michael Mayer is open. I really liked what I saw out of Trey Tucker. I've always liked him,
Yeah.
but in week 1, he's getting better. It's year 2, Brock Bowers. This is fun. I love that they're both undefeated too. They could have easily both been 0-1, but this is a Monday night capper with Joe Buck. This has to be one of the bigger Raiders games since the Raiders-Chargers game where Derek Carr ripped out Justin Herbert's
I'll be there.
That was the
back and
tie
forth.
sent
Yeah.
them both to the playoffs.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Justin Herbert played he's never played well in a big game. That was one of the best games of his career. But the Chargers defense couldn't hold it on for him.
I'll be there Monday night for the Athletic, and I texted Greg earlier this week, and I asked him if he was jealous I was going to go see Geno play in person. He's like, no.
I'm not mad. Don't put in the paper that I'm mad. What a show. Love it. So we're all done with the AFC, but we're not done here just yet. We wanted to find a way to cover each one of your teams even more. So we are going deeper on these previews. All the NFC teams that are playing in home games this week, it is in your feed. We have our NFC preview also up, and I'm excited because if you give us a chance to just honk a little more, throw a few more puns. I think our puns per minute ratio is just
I know.
through the roof right now.
PPF.
I had a Brock Bowers one. I'll save it, though.
Okay, tune in next week or
Yeah.
even Sunday night when you join us again for the recap show, Brock Bowers pun. But for now, just hang tight and go check out the rest of the preview with the NFC. Welcome to NFL Daily, where we hope one day to be guests on the St. Brown Brothers podcast. I'm Gregg Rosenthal here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with my friends Patrick Claybon and Jourdan Rodrigue to preview the NFC games. And yes, this is the first week we're trying this out, separating the conferences. Sometimes it's going to be uneven. Only 5 NFC games, some bangers in here. And if you're listening to this and wonder where all those AFC games that they're in your feed, all of it coming out. We're maximizing our previews forevermore and honking long about your teams to make sure you're covered.
And also bifurcating NFL Daily history, where people will reference shows pre-demerger and post-demerger of the
hope not.
AFC and the NFC.
I mean, I hope it's not that transformative of a moment for us. But yes, we appreciate everyone also checking us out on YouTube and doing the YouTube lives on Monday night. And if you're watching us too on the NFL channel, love you and love this matchup here. In this week in particular, I mentioned the St. Brown Brothers podcast. We'll hear from the brothers in just a second. But isn't it delicious that the Bears and the Lions are playing right now when they're the most ornery?
Right now, as the Lions, fresh off a loss, taking on their former offensive coordinator and the head coach of the Chicago Bears. It is Bears at the Lions. We're giving up 5.5 points. Ooh. The over-under is 47.5. Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, Megan Olivi on the call. As you mentioned it, Greg, we talked about the impending spiciness between Dan Campbell and his former offensive coordinator. Here it is. It's a chance for everything to be out in the open.
I love it. It was part of my off-season, monitoring of the game, and we mentioned how this is a great week of revenge games, and I don't know if they're all friends. It's all professional, but I think both sides, especially in Detroit, really want to win this game. It'll be interesting to hear how Ben Johnson is received. We know how Amon-Ra wants him to be received.
We two gonna be so crazy, I promise you. It's gonna be so electric. But as soon as Ben walks in there, we're booing him. I don't give a f. We all booing him.
Yeah, he said it's gonna be lit. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm here for it for sure.
I just want to be a fly on the wall in his meeting room, bro. How is he as a head coach? Ben, that is not you, dog. I know you. Stop acting like this, Ben. Bro, I want to be a fly on the wall for one meeting. Just one.
Nah, bro. You done with Ben now, bro. It's our turn, bro. Chill.
It's your turn. Yep.
Whoa. I love that. I love that so much because you could tell he's having fun with it. You could tell, obviously they did some great things together, but you kind of heard this start to wear on, including from Amon-Ra, who was asked about it a couple of times in training camp. You could hear this like, well, what about losing Ben Johnson? Question get asked over and over and over again, and it really started to wear on the Lions.
And to be fair, I listened to a lot of the podcasts, and he said a lot of really complimentary things, and he couldn't be more grateful for the creativity and the way that Ben Johnson helped him out. And the other voice that you heard, I should have pointed out, was Rome Odunze from the Bears. So it's all in good fun, and yet, it is that tendency thing. Back when Belichick was playing Mangini, or when even Shanahan and McVay, when you have coaches that know each other really well, do you overthink it? Do you try to stop what they're going to do because you know what they're going to do, but then they're going to do something different? There is something a little extra, and the fact they're both coming off really disappointing week ones for different reasons is awesome.
If I'm the Bears, I just try to do what the heck I'm supposed to do with what the plan is versus getting so far sidetracked off the plan, especially on offense. I mean, this game, they started so well last week against the Vikings, and Caleb Williams looked incredible. And then everything just started deteriorating, especially as the pressure ramped up. Brian Flores was only rushing 4 at first, and he was dropping people. He wasn't really doing things. He was doing more complicated things with the coverage at first than he was with the pressure. He started blitzing more, and then that really started to hassle the game plan, to hassle Caleb Williams, who started working more out of structure when that started happening, which is a good thing. He can make miracles happen, but sometimes the receivers weren't on the same page. I'm thinking of the DJ Moore play where Ryan Fitzpatrick was on social media earlier saying it looked like DJ Moore deviated from the route that he was originally supposed to run. Everything just started devolving and sort of decrescendoing into chaos for the Bears. And so I'm like, I'll take a full game of everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing, less so trying to be, moves and counter moves to whatever the Lions are doing.
Well, we did get to see a glimpse of when everything's working as the way it should.
Yes.
On the fake toss play in the red zone, thrown in the end zone, successful. The exact same play that Ben Johnson called with Jared Goff, and they executed it. It looked a little different with Caleb running it than with Jared Goff, but you see the potential there, and combine that with the off-schedule throws that Caleb made early where he's...
That one to Rome Odunze.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
The one where there's a easy win, a clear win off the edge by, I forget which Vikings edge defender that was, and Caleb puts him in the ground with a move and then floats one to DeAndre Swift. Where you see all the potential there, just got to add those things together and make them last the entire game.
Yeah, and the tape heads, and I went back and I did want to see some of his throws, were really hard on Caleb Williams, but there was a lot of disagreement. Like Kurt Warner watching thought he ultimately had a positive game overall, that there was a lot more good than bad. I think the issue with Caleb still is, and it's a little like Josh Allen early in his career, the bad plays are really bad. Like they're extra bad where he gets really panicky maybe when there's no one there, or he'll miss by a ton. And I don't think it's consistent. He made so many good plays, and I think he's getting used to it. But you do see him fritz out a little bit. It was just one game, and it was against the Vikings. This is going to be a much easier matchup against the Lions, whose pass rush was, if not the worst in the NFL in week one, it was right up there.
I would say yes and no, because also what the Lions are going to do is a similar thing that they played against Green Bay, which you're going to man up quite a bit, right? They use man coverage on about 50% of their coverages. So they're going to mix it up a little bit, but they will play some man, a significant portion of that. And they're going to try to bump these receivers off their timing. The one thing that Ben Johnson is probably going back into the meeting rooms and doing is saying, we're staying on schedule. We're staying efficient. We're going to build in these plays that keep the quarterback on schedule so you don't have to put him in these high stress situations where he's in an impossible down and distance and our run game is not working and they weren't running the ball enough. And then all of a sudden, he is fritzing out, like you said, because he's having to do the impossible and put everything together. And then he's also seeing stuff that's confusing. That would be confusing to any quarterback, especially in a high-stress situation. And so I think that's what they're trying to do. But because the Lions are going to try to mix those coverages the way that they did last week, they're going to try to especially disrupt the timing. And it's on tape what happens when you disrupt the timing of what this Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams offense is.
And also on tape was the way Dennis Allen's defense, especially in the second half, and the Jordan Mason-led ground game of the Vikings really kind of pulled things away versus the first week for the Detroit Lions, who we're used to seeing go up and down the field with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Couldn't get anything going in the run game. I want to see how things look here in week 2.
Yeah, the Renaissance, it was stalled a little bit there in the fourth quarter.
The puns keep coming.
Shout out to the Blue Sky user who responded to one of my tweets about like the Allen Sance and be like, bro, it's right there.
It's clearly the Dennis.
The Renaissance is amazing. I'm worried about the Lions. It was just 1 week, and that's why this game is so big. So I kind of don't care what the Lions are doing schematically. If they are that bad rushing the passer, it's a problem. They had the second lowest pressure rate with a 4-man pass rush. So they sent blitz like half the time against the Packers. And they still had like the 7th worst pressure rate overall, which is a really bad equation where you're sending a ton of pressure and you still weren't getting there. I know it was against Green Bay. And then on the flip side, like their interior offensive line with a rookie in Ratledge and a second-year player in Mahogany and a veteran in Graham Glasgow, they really struggled too. So if you're talking about problems on both lines, that's not the Lions I love, and I want to see them rebound.
What I think was interesting about what the Renaissance...
We're getting punchy. We're just the start of this whole 2-show thing, and we're getting punchy.
Yeah. We're getting punchy.
Hey.
Too many of those. The thing that I thought was really fascinating about the quote-unquote Renaissance, too, and what I expect to see more of from this Bears defense, especially to put some pressure on that front, is just the way that they were so aggressive. And they were so, even Montez Sweat is out there making plays, right? So it's, and he's been hit or miss. I mean, when he's been good, he's been really, really good. But when he's not been good, he's been like, hey, is he going to stay on the team? And so I do think that maximizing and picking your spots and when to truly attack the quarterback is an addition that they have with Dennis Allen. You saw that when they brought that blitz at the exact right time to confuse J.J. McCarthy and to pressure and to hassle him at the exact right time. At that moment, it could have swung. It could have been ultimately the final swing in the game. It wasn't, as we know, but it could have been. And I think that's where this factors in too, is attacking the quarterback, knowing that his offensive line isn't what it was.
And he can't wear that gray undershirt, Caleb Williams, again.
Why were people so itchy about the undershirt?
I don't know, because it looked like my son's flag football team. It just looked like sloppy, It's like what? It's just like he's just out there wearing a gray looking T-shirt underneath the uniform. Just made it just made it not look clean.
The color of the undershirt was the issue?
It's sort of, I guess so. Maybe it feels sort of like just like a gym shirt that he was wearing. I don't know. There was something about it. I wasn't surprised. I didn't realize until days later that was like a thing on the internet. But I was thinking about it during the game. I'm like, that gray shirt is extremely distracting and probably the reason they lost.
He connects on a few of those passes, and the shirt is not an issue. The Lions used a whole lot of man in week 1 against the Packers, and Caleb struggled against man coverage last year. So we'll see if there's growth there. Let's go to a team that also had a heartbreaking loss in week 1. Their loss came at home as well. It's the Atlanta Falcons, who are now going on the road to take on the resurgent J.J. McCarthy Minnesota Vikings, who are 4.5-point favorites against Atlanta. The over-under is 45.5. It's Sunday Night Football. Jourdan, Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, and Melissa Stark. How do you feel about Michael Penix Jr. and the Falcons offense on the road against one of the better defensive coordinators in the NFL?
And one of the more difficult places to play in the NFL as well. Also my survivor pick from last week.
Oh.
Just wanted to reiterate that.
I mean, I think we've mentioned it many times.
Well, I just want you to remember that I take it so seriously, Greg.
Both of you were trying to mess with the integrity of the survivor pick.
No.
Unfortunately,
I am just that bad.
You're right. You love them so much. They are really Jordan's Vikings. Let's just be real about it.
Adore.
You wanted to
Vikings.
take them again this week, and we had to explain the rules of Survivor to you.
Yes, I was so excited about the integrity of the game that I just wanted to keep picking the team that I dared to pick in the first place.
Can't take them again. And I wouldn't take them this week. I don't feel good about this for them.
Do you know what's kind of interesting? There's so much crossover between these two coaching staffs. This is Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson. It's Kevin O'Connell, Wes Phillips. It's across training staffs, coaching trees, whatever that would be called, doctor trees or whatever. Like it's all of these people that know each other so well and know how each other likes to game plan and know how each other likes to scheme.
Dr. Trees is a shop over on Slauson.
It's a new show. It's a new show.
That would be a good. I mean, it's probably happened, but kind of like an office, but
Does it have a green plus sign?
for a legalized weed shop, I think would be like a fun show.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What?
I forgot what I was saying.
Don't worry about it.
Must see TV Thursdays on NBC.
Next week you can come up with 4 different shows like that, and I'll pick out the fake one. Really interesting game. This one, I'm shocked. I guess I shouldn't be shocked, but I'm surprised the Vikings are favored by that much. This is definitely one of those games where these both look like 1-1 teams. Like way of picking games factors in, just like they both kind of feel like 1-1 teams. Like neither one should be 2-0, neither one should be 0-2. So a lot of times that is what happens. These teams find their water, and I thought the Falcons had a lot to be happy with.
Yeah.
I think they outplayed the Bucs last week, and we spent so much time talking about the rookie pass rushers, and they didn't have a massive impact for the Falcons. And long term, they will need to, and soon. But man, they started 2 rookies in the secondary, and Xavier Watts was out there. I was talking about the tape heads not liking Caleb Williams. Like Xavier Watts had a great week as a rookie safety. They're also starting Billy Bowman, and
don't forget Jesse Bates is still there.
He is
Terminator,
and AJ Terrell. And AJ Terrell has always been one of my guys, and I remember the year where he was one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and it's like early planting that flag even the year before with Nate Tice. Like this guy could be an all-pro type of player, and then he was, and he just hasn't been since. It's been injuries or whatever. This happens with cornerbacks, Chris. He's been good. I think he was good last year. Man, that week 1, I was feeling 2022 AJ Terrell vibes or whatever that season was, and if he becomes that dude, and he found something in Watts, and he found Bates, like the Raheem Morris defense plan, it's coming together, and it might be tough to complete passes for McCarthy this week.
And Jeff Ulbrich is there, and so there's a little bit of a schematic shift. They're able to, I think, you saw it. Yes, Baker Mayfield had a ton of time to throw, but like they were getting pressure. They weren't converting necessarily, but they got 15 pressures in that week 1 game, and I do think that that's a positive start. You hear so much pop about James Pierce and what his potential is, what his play energy is. And I think when you match that potential with a really developing and bright spot so far in their coverage, and especially that safety position, I think that you're starting to have something here in Atlanta. And on the other side of the ball, I do think that the part of the reason why this, I guess, is looking the way that it is, at least on paper in Vegas, is that like, you saw what Brian Flores' defense could do, and you saw what it would do to a young quarterback, and you saw how I compared it to, like, sometimes they hit you and they pressure you all at once, right? And it's overwhelming, and it totally, you reel from it, and you just never recover. Sometimes it starts out slow and almost reels you in and almost fools you, and then builds and builds and builds, and all of a sudden you're drowning. And that's what he does. This is his ethos. It's his entire thing. He can do any of them at will. In his defense, even though they will be missing Blake Cashman for a couple of weeks with the hamstring,
big one,
which is a huge loss for them. But Blake Cashman left the game, and that defense still played their butts off. And I'm not saying missing him is not a factor. It absolutely is. But this veteran defense, they're going to give Mike Penix everything that they've got. But I really believe in this quarterback.
Yeah.
I love this quarterback.
Because if we're talking about young quarterbacks, and all due respect to Caleb Williams, he's not playing as well as Michael Penix Jr. has, or has the entire time that both of them have been playing football. And as far as what was available to Michael Penix Jr. against the Buccaneers at home, it wasn't very much. They had to lean on the short passing game, the rushing attack. He almost outrushed Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. They had 24 yards. He had 21 on the ground, to the extent where if something was to get done, Michael Penix Jr. had to do it himself. Yeah. And so, like, I'm excited about the way that the defense and Jeff Ulbrich are looking, but my eyes are firmly on Zach Robinson for this game, because it shouldn't all be the second-year quarterback making. He hasn't made 6 starts in the NFL.
He's not a normal second-year quarterback with 6 starts, though. I do think you see the difference of him being a 25-year-old with a lot of college experience. we'll see what J.J. McCarthy really looks like at the NFL level. But for right now, I would feel more comfortable with Penix. In a lot of ways, I think they remind me of each other. They would be what 1990s analysts would call gamers, like that they do what it takes to win when it's winning time, and that they just got a little something extra. Because I saw that in Penix last week, and I do love the way he played in the fourth quarter. It got overshadowed ultimately because Koo missed the kick and Baker Mayfield. But I thought every winning play that needed to be made, Penix made it, and he has ultimately more experience based on college and based on the NFL experience that he has.
Yeah, that's why the whole game-winning drive thing that we put up for quarterbacks is a huge liar. If you want to look at 2 games last week where Aaron Rodgers gets like 17 yards and Chris Boswell hits a 60-yard field goal versus Michael Penix Jr. going all the way down the field with no timeouts and Koo yanks one. It's not fair.
It's unfair.
We talked about a smattering of revenge games. Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy once faced each other for a certain national championship game in college. Had to fact check that real quick. Sorry to be rude. I was on the phone, but
that's a fair point. That's a good point, dog. Also, the Falcons could have taken
you tried
J.J.
that
McCarthy.
out. You took that first.
No, I just completely forgot because we've been taping so long. I was like, I used to listen to Mike and the Mad Dog. That was fun. One last thing on this game, and then let's move on.
Let's do it.
I thought Mike Hughes is the weakness in that secondary. So can Adam Thielen or Jalen Naylor really be the guys that take advantage? And then I think we talked a little, that it was Colleen on a Tuesday show about a possible this is the year for Kyle Pitts. And I thought he looked good last week. I thought after the catch, there's a little bit of that juice that I think because of injuries, we haven't really seen consistently at the NFL level. So just something to watch. Little Kyle Pitts-a-sance. Okay, I'm overdoing Kyle Pitts-a-sances.
We have had a lot of sances.
We're having a seance.
We're having a seance for Brock Purdy as we're concerned about his injury status. The San Francisco 49ers, 6.5-point favorites. As I am looking at this on this piece of paper, I feel like that may change. At the New Orleans Saints, the over-under 46.5 again right now. Kevin Kugler, Daryl Johnson, Allison Williams on the call. We may be back to Mac. Gregg Rosenthal, how does that make you feel?
Interested.
Oh.
I had a whole segment planned for Tuesday's show that Purdy and that first drive by the 49ers offense was a fantastic omen, because even though Purdy threw a couple interceptions in that game, I thought he dealt with pressure and ultimately with the guys around him, did the most in a game that I thought the Seahawks defense played well. Now he's hurt and you lose a lot, and it will really hurt this team long term. But if he's going to miss games, at New Orleans is not a bad one to miss. You have Jacksonville and Arizona coming up at home. We'll see how long it takes. And I'm curious. I'm curious to see Mac Jones in the offense that Kyle Shanahan wanted to draft him in, according to reports, back in the Trey Lance draft, that John Lynch went over the top, and got his guy, Trey Lance. Neither one of them long-term really worked out. But, man, Mac Jones was slinging it in the preseason. Sometimes watching those preseason games pays off, and it's for a moment like this so that I can tell you, America, that Mac Jones was slanging it.
If I'm recalling some of the cyclical nature of the sport correctly, there was once a time in San Francisco where a sort of unheralded quarterback signed a massive contract, then got injured, then Brock Purdy took his job. Now Brock Purdy is injured. We're not sure if we're going to see him when he's going to play. And Mac Jones has been waiting in the wings for this exact moment to take basically everything he can get to show he still deserves a starting job. But no George Kittle. Juwan Jennings is banged up. Kendrick Bourne is there now, Greg. You've been sort of calling this out for a while, that Kendrick Bourne will at some point arrive in San Francisco.
Yeah. And he arrived.
I think he's gonna play.
Yeah, he took a visit and they put a number in front of him, and Kendrick said, no, you're gonna need me. I'm gonna leave.
I love that.
Kendrick Bourne was right, because the price did go up. The need went up as well.
And to be clear, Purdy's not playing in this game. Shanahan said it could be a multi-week injury.
Yeah.
And since we started recording, literally, the 49ers line has gone from 6.5 to 2.5. So it is viewed more as a toss-up. Ultimately, the Saints need to show some of the stuff they showed last week. Number one, Demario Davis and Cameron Jourdan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Still got it.
our friend Ryan, Dat Boy Wolf on Twitter from the Saints Block Party podcast, he suggested a segment for NFL Daily called the Unks of the Week. I was like, I don't know if I'm the man to really pull off that segment, but if we had some Cameron Jourdan and Demario Davis, like longtime veterans, 17 years deep for Demario Davis, and Cam Jourdan is literally the oldest player to ever have a sack for the New Orleans Saints, they would be the Unks of the Week.
Yeah, just in terms of filling, because it's a violent game to fill gaps as a run defender, and for Demario Davis to still be doing it at this level on a defense that has had some problems, and a lot of teams have had rushing success. I know Trey Benson averaged almost 9 yards a carry against the Saints. That being said, still played pretty well, and they were in that game. They were in the game, and the Rat Man made some throws. The snake emojis are flying up on the top.
Yeah.
I think he looked good. I think he looked Spencer Rattler better than a week ago. I don't want to move past like the big story here, though. Do you think I pulled off the Unks of the Week segment? I tried, Ryan.
Yeah.
If you're out there, I tried.
It's. I don't know where you feel like the lapse would be. Greg.
No, it's canon. It's happening. You know who wouldn't have been? Would be Trent Williams. I was shocked watching that game last week.
Yeah.
Might have been the worst game of his career.
That disturbed you. That disturbed you.
He did leave the game
Yeah.
at one point.
He also didn't, practice or play that much in the preseason. And then Matt Barrows of The Athletic responded to my tweet because I was just watching and being like, wow, I just can't remember Trent Williams ever looking human. And he noted that Trent Williams gave up more pressures in that game than any game in 7 or 8, I think it was 8 years.
Yeah, since
so
18.
So that's something to watch because I would assume he's going to work his way into shape. But if he's not Trent Williams, they are a different team.
Obviously, opponent factors in, but what if I told you guys that the Robert Saleh defense, by the way, Brandon Staley revenge game coming up, now that we're keeping track of revenges and whatnot, although I guess it doesn't really count because he was like an assistant, but anyway. What if I told you guys that the Robert Saleh defense, the Saleh-sance, is finished third behind the Colts and the Broncos in week 1 in passing defense EPA per play? What's your reaction to that, Greg?
They had Darnold looking kind of crazy out there.
He only threw the ball to one player. Literally,
Yes.
I've never seen that. 90% of the air yards
Yes.
from Darnold last week were to Jackson Smith and Jig. But I think it's a really positive sign. That was a better secondary defensive performance than they had almost all of last year.
And I'll say, jokes aside, they did look way better. They looked more active. Robert Saleh is actually blitzing so far at about a 10% more frequency than he ever has before, which is good because we've been talking about this all offseason, that he has to evolve a little bit, where he went from not really, necessarily liking to blitz so much, but now he has to because he's not exactly getting exactly what he needs from even the odd fronts that he likes to run sometimes. So he's blitzing the linebackers more, sometimes the DBs, but mostly like D. Winter was the guy that he's blitzing a lot. The other part of this is they do have some areas of, I don't want to say weakness because he's a young player, it was his first game, but Seattle tried the plan where they're like, let's throw it at Upton Stout and see what happens. And he plays in the slot, and the Saints have 3 receivers who are really good, who can all play in the slot. I mean, 2 receivers who are really good, one who's a veteran receiver.
One that I have a note here that they need to take him out of the lineup, and that's
Yes,
Brandon Cooks.
I was going to say, I saw your face, and I was like, okay, let me take that back.
Sorry.
2 receivers who are really good, and one who's a veteran.
Like resting Greg reaction face is not good, and I don't know, but
I needed that
everyone's
note.
told me about
I needed that note.
It just happened to be written down. It's like they need more. Remember the preseason? It was a lot of fun. Mason Tipton, let's get some speed in there. Devon Vele, they traded for him. Let's get him in there. Brandon Cooks, at this point, you can't play him just because of the contract. Maybe it was the scheme, though, because I didn't see Olave and Shaheed getting much room either. It was a great job by Arizona. They were so pass heavy. The Saints, even though Alvin Kamara looked good and they ran it,
they want to throw the ball so bad.
I was so sure they were going to run the ball. They didn't do it at all.
and they were playing hurry up, and Rattler looks good there. I do think you saw some growth from Rattler year 1 to year 2 that makes me more excited about watching the Saints. Just he looked like an NFL quarterback, and he's going up against a guy in Mac Jones who has had a lot of struggles when he's played over the last 3 or 4 years. There was one time, though, I've said this before, that he was in the Rookie of the Year race with future Hall of Famer Jamar Chase.
Who do we think? Pick someone. Who do we think on the Saints, Mac Jones is going to try to fight.
Everybody. I mean, Mac goes fight anybody he can.
I will say, too, to your point on Demario Davis earlier, Greg, we saw him having the time of his life at practice when we were out there earlier this summer. So I'm stoked for him. It's translating into the season.
It's one of those things that I just hope it can keep going because I thought he did start to look like he was slowing down a little bit. Cam Jourdan, just talked about he wanted to be more productive than he was a year ago, and they're off to a great start. And your D. Winters shout out is a great one because he looked awesome. And I like it when you hear the hype pieces from the entire offseason, and D. Winters has been the subject of them. Like, this guy looks different this year than he's ever looked in the past, and you can kind of see it, and he's probably a perfect fit for that offense. Let's take a break, and we will be wrapping up the NFC after the break, including the matchup that all the networks fight over every year. Back on NFL Daily, Revenge Week. The biggest revenge game of the week is actually going to be played. Tulane. Darian Mensah, their star freshman quarterback who left the Tulane Green Wave to go to Duke, matching up against each other on Saturday. That's what I will be watching.
And you should.
Yulman Stadium.
Roll Wave, Greg.
They might be a top 25 team if they could win this game. But this kid Mensah, we will be talking about him in the path to the draft in about a year or two, depending on how long he stays there, because he is awesome. But now playing for Duke.
And
let's talk. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and then you will be a Mensa member. Not as much right now while he's playing.
But
I love him, though. But the puns, we've now broken the record.
There it is.
Breaking news. Congratulations.
And let's get to our next game, the New York Giants and their quarterback for now, Russell Wilson, taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who are 6-point favorites at home. The over-under is 44.5. Joe Davis, G-Reg, and Pam Oliver are on the call. As Jourdan, we saw a lot of frustration from the Giants offense. What are you looking forward to seeing against the Cowboys from them this time?
frustration and not much else. I mean, my goodness, they could not move the ball on the ground. They could not move the ball in the air. This was also a huge factor of Andrew Thomas not being there, their left tackle, who is still not practicing as of our taping on Wednesday, but Brian Daboll expects him back later this week. He was actually surprisingly honest with reporters earlier on Wednesday morning when they asked him directly about whether Andrew Thomas was planning to be back at all. Having him back is significant. It's also probably part of the reason, if he does come back, probably part of the reason why Russell Wilson is still starting this week, because they have to see what it looks like when Andrew Thomas is on the field with this offensive line, and he creates such a statistical differentiation that, like, you actually have to see if you've even got anything with Wilson before you make the move to Jackson Dart, which I still think is going to happen soon.
Love that theory. And part of it can be that you also don't want to start Jackson Dart without Andrew Thomas.
Yeah.
Right. If he's not available, because they say it's part of his rehab plan to miss Wednesday and practice Thursday or Friday, but nobody really knows what's going to happen here. The biggest upset of the week would not be the Giants winning this game. It's kind of shocking, though, that they're 6-point underdogs. That's given a lot of credit to the Cowboys coming off of a losing effort. The biggest shock is that this is a 1 p.m. game. I don't think in my time covering the NFL that this has ever been a 1 o'clock game. Because
Kind of the time.
It's usually, as I said, sorry, Patrick, it's not Panthers Cardinals that the networks fight over.
Oh.
It's this one. Because you look at like the highest rated games of all time in the NFL, and half of them are like Giants Cowboys games on Sunday Night Football. They always were shoving it down our throat. Now they're still giving us the Joe Davis, Greg Olsen treatment. My number one booth, not just in Fox, but in America. Joe Davis, I mean, killing it with the Dodgers and in football, and there's no one better than G-Reg. But this thing being at 1 o'clock, how the mighty have fallen.
And the legend Pam Oliver on the ground as well. And I think that this is interesting because I kind of think we know what Dallas is going to be all year. Like, I'm pretty sure they're just going to be this, right? They're going to be able to put up points. They have good matchups. They have two receivers they can get the ball to. CeeDee Lamb minus the drops really if you take away the drops, had a really good game. Dak Prescott looked incredible. You know, I don't know how effective they're going to be running the ball at any point.
That's what I would like to ask you both. When you say you think we know what we're going to be.
Well, I didn't say we. You say that.
Like, I thought you did say we. You said we know what they're going to be this year. And I guess I'm positing after that week 1 performance, but I'm doing it in a question. Like, how high do you think the ceiling is for this running game coordinated by Clayton Adams coming up over from Arizona, because it is one of the things that I feel differently about after watching one game.
Yeah, if we can track the growth of last season, where the season started, and again, I understand it's different parts of this coaching staff, where there was nothing available. Then as Rico Dowdle kind of got going late to the middle part of last season, it's like it was a viable run game. It already starts looking, with like some injuries, some questions up front, looks like a viable running game, to where the offense can actually have that balance. And if Dak plays like that, they're going to be in every single game.
Yeah.
But again, that's all the health of 4.
This is a lazy comparison, but I'm going to make it anyway. They're kind of Bengalsy 2024 to me a little bit. Obviously, it's really extreme talent at receiver. I think they're going to run the ball better than a lot of people expected. The Bengals last year did that as well with Chase Brown. They pleasantly surprised me with how they were running the ball, because even in joint, they weren't getting any movement at all, even when they were allowed to hit at practices. And so for them to be able to come out and look, like I said, surprisingly adequate, and even then some. Kind
of frisky and cohesive too. Like the line looked good. It was creative.
I really liked, you could see they were running, Brian Schottenheimer and Clayton Adams, they, the way that they called that game after Jalen Carter came out, they were calling, especially inside zone. They were calling some gap stuff. They were calling some duo stuff. They were really actually spamming the place where he was not, right? And so I think that type of multiplicity in the run game is also important, that you call what works in that situation, that you have it even in the bag of tricks to use. I think, again, I guess, to me, I believe that they're very 2024 Bengalsy, which is not necessarily a good thing, but it's better than what we thought they were going to be.
They got a little extra rest. I know it's early in the season, but I'm always on 3 days extra rest watch. It's not nothing. And this is a great matchup for them, because we have this idea that the Giants defensive line is great, and it is. It is at the edge positions and Dexter Lawrence, which is a lot of the defensive line. But I saw last week where sometimes they had a 3-man, like true defensive line, where they have, the edge guys standing up, and the 3 guys in the middle are Roy Robertson Harris, Nacho Nunez, and DJ Davidson. And this is a team whose run defense stank in 2024, and they stunk in week 1 too, giving up 224 yards. And I do think the edge guys are good, and obviously it is. I do think this might be a team that you can run on, because Shane Bowen, show me something. He's just kind of there, and it's a passive, kind of staying back kind of defense. So maybe this is a game where we do see the Cowboys run the ball a little bit.
And I ultimately, over on the other side, I know we talked about the Jackson Dart thing. It's a tough needle to thread to coach well enough to keep your job, and then hide and protect a quarterback who's there essentially for Brian Daboll's purposes to keep his job at some point, to put him in and show promise, and you have to have that promise. It's a very delicate balance to try to have while you're coaching a football team, that I don't know if there's a way to
Brian Daboll's a delicate guy,
Right. I think if they
when I think of Brian Daboll,
I think this is it for Russell Wilson if he struggles. I think it'll be it this week. And just the defense, like I mentioned, I don't think is going to do him any favors. They lost Micah McFadden, so that's a serious injury. It's going to be multiple weeks. I think he's going on injured reserve. It's not for the season. And Okereke was a guy that they were really excited about at one point, and is struggling, and struggled a week ago. So I think there's weaknesses there at linebacker, at cornerback, and maybe those 6 points aren't that crazy.
It might not be a big deal. It might be a big deal. Malik Neighbors was limited this week to start the week.
Good to know. And Deron Bland missed practice, which was a surprise. I didn't even know he was hurt, and that would be a significant loss for the Cowboys at cornerback. We've made it to the end of the road here, Patrick.
We have.
Game everyone really is fighting over.
Yes, fighting, scratching, and clawing. The Carolina Panthers are 0-1 at the Arizona Cardinals, who are 1-0, who are 6.5-point favorites. The over-under is 44.5. Spiro Ditas, Adam Archuleta, and Aditi Kikabwala are there. Greg, at a certain point, we need to have a different conversation about this Carolina Panthers run defense. It has been historically bad. It was historically bad once again. What?
I don't know. I don't know. Derek Brown can't just fix everything. That was the end of the question, right?
That was it.
Yeah.
Why? What?
Why is another question.
Yeah. How?
How?
When do they do something different?
Like,
where do you find the answers?
Oops. Okay, if I see the Cardinals throw the ball 1 GD time in this game, it's the wrong game plan. I'm just saying.
maybe they'll miss Clayton Adams, by the way, because their run game wasn't great against the Saints. Well, the James Conner runs weren't great. I guess they were fine. They had a normal running game. But yes, you're right. This
Load it
feels,
up, run the ball. 13 personnel the whole game. Do it.
This feels like a Panthers Cardinals Jourdan game for the first time. We can now announce Sunday, Jourdan Rodrigue. Full recap show. She's getting the assignments. We're going to figure out who has what games. And this feels, if you're down with it, like a Jourdan game.
Oh, this is a very, very me game.
It's a Jourdan coded game. So I think if you're okay with it, this will be the game that you focus extra hard on. You try extra hard on in the afternoon game.
Yes, and also it is interesting that you ask me as we're taping, because what if I would have said no, it's not okay. I can't just say no.
Then I'll take it.
It's not okay. I mean,
I'll take it, and you can have the Super Bowl rematch. It is quite a difference.
It is that's a little bit of whiplash there. I do want this
I have
game,
different
though.
strategies though. I like to watch those closer sometimes the next day anyway, so I'm fine missing the big games.
I do really want to watch this game because I do think that this defense with the Panthers, first of all, they're still undermanned, right? And overwhelmed. And so far, it's 1 week, right? But so far, it's the same story. And it's sort of a ticking time bomb in terms of, Ejiro Evero being there and his entire staff. And that is just a situation to keep an eye on. And it's something where you don't want to keep changing and changing and changing and changing. But, and I would also argue that, yes, they went out and they paid some veteran free agents to come in, Christian Roseboom and Bobby Brown, and then they are trying to figure out what they're doing at corner and all this stuff. And that's their prerogative to do so. Greg.
Say the line. Say the line.
But it also is like, okay, it's bang your head against the wall enough times, you're going to knock yourself out. Like, come on.
Their pass rush was completely non-existent in terms of pressures, per snap, by far the worst pass rush of any team in the league last week. And it was against the Jaguars offensive line. And maybe the Jaguars are a really improved group, but that's not one that you think of, when you're thinking of like great offensive lines. And it's such a big game for both teams. Like, Carolina goes on the road and wins this game, and they're 1-1. It's just like,
then we're worrying for nothing.
Everything's fine, and you just start moving forward. They lose it, and you start thinking about, man, when was the last time the Panthers were in a season in mid-October? Forget getting to December. When is the time they were? So I went and checked. They were 1-7 last season to start the year. They were 1-12 the year before, which was it's hard to keep track of all their coaches, Frank Reich year. And they were 1-5 the year before, which was the Matt Rule year.
Yeah, the Matt Rule stuff doesn't.
So, but it's just been a while since they were even in the mix. And you just don't want to have that sort of slow start. And I think if you're the Cardinals, I heard Jonathan Gannon say it this week. He's like, we were pretty rusty last week. We need to wake up a little. Let's get going. Well, because they were given a gift by the schedule gods, getting Saints and then home for Panthers to start. Take advantage, and you start out fast.
Well, you're, I think, allowed the grace of a slow start if you run into a scenario that Kyler Murray admitted he ran into, in which he was up at 4 a.m, very ill the night before the game. I think if you're not going through that.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, he got put on the report late because he was going through it.
He was going through it, and he was pretty open about it on like an influencer Twitch stream. Is that, I don't really know if I'm using the right words.
I thought he played fine though.
Yeah, but that's what he was saying. He was like, it was bad news for Kyler very much earlier that morning.
His communication wasn't the only thing that was open, you're saying.
There we go.
You want more show? You got it.
Yeah. That's the Super Bowl we're focused on.
I do feel.
What have I done?
There we go. I do feel like we should wrap with that, but I do want to just give some pop, because I know Cardinals fans, they want to hear their team talked about a little bit. The Will Johnson, Max Melton combo last week looked freaking awesome.
Did you go back and watch that Will Johnson game? I loved that game.
And Melton, too, was all over Olave and is a guy that, under the radar, second-round pick who was impressive last year, and he might be taking a step. That's exciting if you're a Cardinals fan, having guys like that next to Buda Baker. I'm looking forward to this game. We need a Bryce Bryce Young rebound. Bryce
He
is
needs to play better.
Yeah, a bounce back from a Watoti nominee performance.
Oh,
where he
that's
had
right.
The worst throw of the year nominee. Get it back, Bryce.
If you're going to have a nominee, week 1 is the right time to do it. We have a whole season of throws that are going to be worse and throws that will be better and games that will be worse. We did it. We got to the end, and I loved it. That is it for the NFC and all of our preview shows this week. If you're just listening to this and you're wondering, where's my Bengals? Where's my AFC team? Like, all the AFC preview games are in the podcast. If your team's playing a home game in the AFC, like even the Rams are in there because they're going on the road to Tennessee. That is in your feed as well. Right now, that's it. We will be back in your feed on Thursday night. Nick Shook and I handling that primetime game. One of the best Thursday night games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Commanders Packers.
That's going to be fun. We previewed it earlier this week.
This was a lot of fun. I think the Sansa Sans, it's happening.